Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Chapter 1. A chaotic world 6,000 years ago. I am Riku, or perhaps. In a dim room, a white-haired, golden-eyed boy muttered blankly to himself. The deep, melancholic gold in his eyes now seemed lost and confused. After a few minutes, the boy snapped back to reality, his golden eyes filled with complex shock and disbelief. He had transmigrated, seizing this body for himself. To be precise, his soul had devoured the soul of the boy called Riku, who had collapsed under the weight of guilt, regret, despair, and every kind of negative emotion. This world was in chaos. On this planet called Discord, there existed gods and all manner of fantasy races created by them. Led by the god races, these fantasy creatures waged endless war for supremacy, using powers beyond human imagination to turn this beautiful planet into a ravaged, wounded wasteland. Everywhere were massive craters, rifts, and scorch marks. The once blue sky was obscured by dust, shrouding the world in darkness. Human civilization, once vast, was destroyed by these mighty races as easily as squashing a bug. In the eyes of the other races, humans weren't even as valuable as livestock. Pathetically weak. Humans could do nothing but run, endlessly searching for somewhere safer to live. Even then, a careless mistake could mean being wiped out by the collateral damage of the battles between other races. Yes, just the aftershocks. To the other races, humans were no different than monkeys. Maybe some mindless fiends that ate people would hunt them, but there was no race that bothered to deliberately hunt humans. To these beings, humans were like monkeys or ants. If you saw them, you might crush them, but going out of your way to hunt them down would be a waste of precious time. That was the place of humanity on Discord. Weak and insignificant. Yet, in order to survive, humans could only bury all their negative emotions deep inside and keep running, doing whatever it took to live. If 2 people needed to survive, 1 would be abandoned. If 4 people could be saved, 2 would be sacrificed. When encountering other races, humans could only use tactics where a companion would intentionally draw attention to themselves and die, so the majority could escape. As the one giving those orders, the boy called Riku had accumulated too much psychological pressure. In the end, his soul completely collapsed. Never thought I'd came to this world like this, the boy said with a faint, bitter smile. He was very familiar with this world and with Riku. After all, he'd watched the anime No Game No Life and its movie. Reality is harsher than anime, he muttered. In the anime, Riku was under immense pressure, but he didn't collapse. Instead, he ended the war with his wits. But this world's Riku did break down. From now on, I am Riku. I'll try to fulfill your last wishes as best as I can, the boy murmured in his heart. In his previous life, he was like a ghost. No family, no friends. If he disappeared or died suddenly, probably no one would care. Maybe some people would even be happy. After all, he was always treated as a monster. Ordinary people often fear geniuses they cannot understand. Riku shook his head mockingly. Riku's circumstances reminded him of the siblings who would arrive in this world 6,000 years later. Also misunderstood, also treated like monsters. So, whatever he was before, whatever his name was, it didn't matter anymore. From now on, his name was Riku. Ding. Supreme Treasure Chest System, user accepted. Loading. At that moment, a mechanical voice echoed in Riku's mind, making him narrow his golden eyes. Even though he immediately thought of the legendary cheat ability, he was pleased but didn't show any excitement. This preternatural calmness was one reason he'd always been called a monster. Supreme Treasure Chest System loading. 1%. 10%. 78%. 99%. 100%. Loading complete. Respected Master, the Supreme Treasure Chest System is now at your service. The system divides treasure chests into bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and diamond. These are just the basic types, other varieties await your discovery. Reminder, even bronze chests can yield powerful items. The chances are just lower. After the emotionless mechanical voice finished, a map appeared before Riku's eyes. So basic, but it'll do, Riku muttered, glancing at the map, the red dots above it, and the various chests marked by those dots. This is the world map, right? He asked, though his tone was certain. He already knew. And those red dots must be the randomly distributed chest locations. Correct. Can you make a more detailed map? For example, showing the distribution of the different factions? Riku asked seriously. Chapter 2. In an instant, the virtual map that only Riku could see became even clearer, revealing the territories of every major faction. The highest grade diamond chests, unsurprisingly, were found in the most perilous places: the lair of the Dragonia, ranked 4th among the Xseed, the mutated Phantasma stronghold ruled by the Demon King, ranked 2nd, and the capital of the Gigant, ranked 5th. As for platinum chests, they appeared in the capitals or nests of other powerful races. Gold, silver, and bronze chests, at least, weren't nearly as dangerous. But what really caught Riku's attention was the Flugel's headquarters, Avonheim, ranked 6th. A race infamous as weapons of war, said to have even slain the old deus. There, at the heart of their stronghold, sat a rainbow tier chest. Clearly above even diamond grade. But to obtain it was next to impossible. Hundreds of god-slaying Flugel guarded the place, and the headquarters itself was the phantasm of Avonheim. And yet, above all these, there was an even greater existence, Artosh, the old deus, the god of war. The first ranked, the mightiest being, king of kings, god among gods, who had slain countless enemies across the ages. Avonheim served as his apostle, and the god-slaying Flugel were his creation. In short, the headquarters of Avonheim was the most dangerous place on Disport, bar none. This level of difficulty is just ridiculous. Riku narrowed his eyes, a sly smile on his face. Chest locations were random only for the lower and middle tiers. High-tier chests clearly appeared where their danger matched their value. Chests respawned over time, diamond every 3 years, platinum every year, the rainbow chest never, gold every 6 months, silver every 3 months, and bronze every month. I get the basics. System, is there a beginner's chest? No, I figured as much. Riku nodded, not disappointed. He glanced at the bronze chest that had just appeared in his room and grinned. This is insane luck. Spawning right here. He reached out and placed his hand on the chest. In an instant, it popped open, revealing a glowing orb. Ding. Congratulations, Master. You've opened the bronze chest and obtained Tegu Dimensional Formation, Shambhala, Tegu, Imperial Arms, Dimensional Formation, Shambhala, from Akam Ga Kill, allows a user to set spatial coordinates and teleport. Its ultimate ability can banish a target into another dimension, consuming both mental and physical stamina. Not a bad start, Riku thought, turning the purple, compass-like item in his hand. He was very familiar with Akam Ga Kill. And the power of Shambhala. In a world overflowing with powerful enemies, teleportation was more valuable than brute strength. With dimensional formation, collecting chests and moving bases would be a breeze. Ding. Tegu Shambhala detected. Recycle or store it. What do you mean by recycling? And what's storage? Recycling means converting valuable items into exchange points, which can be used to buy chests. Storage gives you 5 cubic meters of space, expandable as you open more chests. A virtual screen appeared before his eyes. Exchange system, ordinary chest, 1,000 points, exquisite chest, 5,000 points, superior chest, 20,000 points, supreme chest, 100,000 points, divine chest, 500,000 points. Lower tier chests could grant all sorts of items and abilities, with the odds and limits set by chest grade. Supreme and divine chests, on the other hand, guaranteed top tier rewards, including rare bloodlines and overpowered abilities. The prices were terrifying, but since a bronze chest had just given him a Tegu, it seemed worth it. Probably. Chapter 3. No need to recycle, and I won't store it either. Riku shook his head. Shambhala is a lifesaver. There's no way I'm locking it away in storage. The system fell silent. Binding this instantly. That's convenient. No compatibility issues to worry about. Riku grinned as he gripped Shambhala. Riku, everything's ready. Come out for a second. A clear female voice called from outside. Yeah, I know. Hearing her, Riku's golden eyes narrowed slightly. He got up, slipped Shambhala into his pouch, and opened the door. Standing there was a girl with red hair, blue eyes, a pair of goggles on her head, and a striking figure in her black and white clothes. Her name was Kura. Riku's sister, after her father adopted him when Riku's village was destroyed by the war among the fantasy races. Riku, how's your health? Kura looked at him with concern. She'd heard his earlier outburst, but now, as another mission approached, she was worried again. He always carried too much. No problem. Riku's expression was steady. He tapped his chest. Everything's locked up in here. That's good. Kura's face stayed worried, but she didn't notice that the real Riku was already gone. This time we're after a dwarf-made telescope. If we can retrofit it, we'll spot trouble sooner and escape the fighting. Kura's voice trembled a bit. But as important as it is, don't push yourself. You're our pillar. I understand. Riku answered calmly. To survive, humans needed every scrap of wisdom and every tool. Strength, resolve, and intelligence. All essential. Even then, every settlement lost at least 100 people each year. Sometimes wiped out entirely. Thanks to Riku and Kura, their group lost only 46 in 4 years. A miracle. But every one of those 46. I sent them to die to buy the rest of us a chance to escape. That's what broke the old Riku. Kura, just protect the settlement. I'll take care of everything else. He didn't say more. Riku stepped past her and into the dim hallway. Geez, I'm supposed to be the big sister, but he always calls me Koor. Such a stubborn little brother. Kura muttered, watching Riku's back with aching concern. Riku, be careful. Riku, please come back safe. As Riku entered the open cave, everyone working there greeted him, praying for his safe return. Riku nodded to each of them in turn. In this dark world, no one was useless. Even the youngest had a purpose. Riku, here's your gear. Ivan walked over, handing him a dust mask, heavy for armor, and a big pack. Ailey and the others? Riku asked as he suited up. They're getting ready, Ivan replied, scratching his head. This mission was supposed to be for 5, with 3 other teammates besides Ivan. Riku glanced at Ivan. A man with a wife and daughter who, in the original story, would die within a year. No need to drag them along. This time, I'll go alone. Let them know, I'll do this solo. The rest of you stay here. Ivan froze. Riku. Don't joke around. Kura ran up, grabbing his collar. I'm serious. Riku met her gaze, unmoved. He remembered this from the novel. In the original story, the mission succeeded, but 2 companions died after running into beastmen. If things went the same way, going solo with Shambhala was safest. Even if it was still risky. Chapter 4 Ivan, one person is enough for this. Riku's tone was cool and final. Ivan tensed. Don't be reckless. If you go out there alone and run into any other race, even the weakest beastman, you know what'll happen, you'll be torn to pieces. That's how fragile humans are. Death might be a release for some, but to throw your life away for nothing is just cowardice. To Ivan and Kura, it looked like Riku had given up on living. Riku was the most talented among them. At just 13, he'd led the settlement through years of flight, keeping casualties to 46 as the group grew to 2,000. Anyone else might die for the cause, but not Riku. He was hope, the pillar of the settlement, their one true leader. Don't worry. I'm not being reckless. Riku's voice was calm. This time, going solo is the best move. But... Kura started, but Riku cut her off. Kura, do you really think I'd abandon such a beautiful, lovable sister to go throw my life away? I haven't even proposed to you yet. He flashed her a sudden smile, his golden eyes locking on hers. What? Kura's face turned crimson as she let go of his collar, flustered and waving her hands in panic. PFFT. What a youthful confession. Ivan burst out laughing. Honestly, you two should have gotten married long ago. Hey. Teasing your big sister isn't fair, Riku. Kura protested, cheeks red but eyes sparkling. I always keep my promises, Riku said, slinging his bag over his shoulder and heading out without looking back. So just wait for me to return. Geez. Kura sighed, reaching after him, then let her hand fall. She didn't know what he was planning. But she was sure of one thing, Riku wasn't running off to die. Still, something about him feels different now, Kura murmured, her cheeks still faintly red. Kura. Shouldn't we go after him? Ivan asked, scratching at his stubble. Let's trust him this time. Riku's not the type to do anything foolish. Kura shook her head, her voice soft. All right, got it. Ivan nodded. In the past, whenever someone found something useful for humans, anything with spirit energy, for example, temptation always followed. But Riku would always calmly take it away and toss it aside, knowing such things would attract other races. Even if an artifact could save countless lives, he never hesitated to get rid of it. That's why, as long as Riku was in charge, they trusted his judgment. Still, it was impossible not to worry Riku hadn't told them anything. Leaving the settlement, Riku adjusted his dust mask and glanced up at the sky. Blood-red clouds drifted overhead, as if the world itself was bleeding from endless war. Greenish-black ash, Raimukuru, fell everywhere, piling up on the ground. It looked beautiful, but Riku knew the truth. Those glowing black ashes were actually the corpses of spirits. Their light flickering out as they died. Black ash, Raimukuru, deadly poison to almost all life, including humans. Touch it, your skin burns. If it gets in your eyes, you go blind. Breathe it in, your organs dissolve. Even the strongest races avoided the black ash in great quantities. Humans really are stubborn creatures, Riku muttered, leading his horse and mounting up. He set off at a gallop. His goal was the wreckage of a dwarf warship. But mainly, he was after treasure chests. The nearest bronze chest was a little off the main route. 3 days later, Riku stood atop a hill. Those 3 days were more dangerous than he'd expected. He'd spotted several beastmen in the distance and gone far out of his way to avoid them. Luckily, low-level beastmen were dumb and lacked the ability to stalk prey. Riku's careful, deliberate movements kept him from being detected. Otherwise, he would have been forced to use Shambhala to teleport away, but that would have consumed a lot of stamina. After all, Riku was just an ordinary human. Compared to Shiel from Akam Ga Kill, his stamina was nowhere near as good. With such stamina, he could not use Shambhala more than a couple of times at once. Chapter 5 Let's hope I get something good, Riku thought, placing his hand on the bronze chest. In an instant, the bronze chest opened, revealing a glowing orb inside. Ding. Congratulations, you have opened a bronze chest and received a basic gene serum. Ding. Basic gene serum detected. Value, 500 exchange points. Recycle? A basic gene enhancement serum. Not bad, Riku let out a quiet sigh and spoke to the system in his mind. Don't recycle. Only a fool would give up something this useful. Following the instructions, Riku took the sharp syringe and plunged it straight into his heart, injecting the serum. Even though the pain was almost unbearable, he just frowned and silently pushed every last drop into himself. When he pulled out the syringe, his face was flushed, and the serum quickly spread through his body with each heartbeat. He gripped a nearby rock as the pain pulsed through him. After about 10 minutes, the pain finally faded. With a squeeze, the rock in his hand cracked. His grip was already much stronger. Still, compared to the beings in this world, he was weak. Any ogre or were-beast could kill him with ease. But for now, physical strength was less important. Being able to use Shambhala well was enough. A sudden roar echoed from below. Riku's eyes snapped down to the foot of the slope, where a 4-meter-tall, muscle-bound, green-skinned ogre was stomping toward his horse. Startled, the horse Riku had tied up whinnied and struggled at its tether. I can't lose my mount, he thought, his eyes narrowing. Even if this was just the lowest-level ogre among the demonia, it was more than he could handle in a direct fight. But he needed that horse. Going on foot would use up too much energy. Let's hope there aren't more demonia around, Riku muttered, moving to a large, round boulder near the slope. He quickly calculated the best angle and then pushed the rock over the edge. Rumbling, the huge stone tumbled down the slope, gathering speed and power until it crashed straight into the ogre, sending blue blood splattering everywhere. The monster was killed instantly. Good, that worked out, Riku let out a breath. He drummed the calculations in his head, but things could always go wrong. Luckily, he didn't need to use Shambhala again, which would have cost more energy. He teleported next to his horse, calmed it down, and then walked over to the remains of the ogre. Ding. Demonia, ogre, corpse detected. Recycle for 100 exchange points? Riku smiled. If he could recycle knives, clothes, and even horses, of course, he could recycle the body of an ogre. Recycle, he said calmly. The corpse vanished, leaving only a bloody stain behind. If not for that, no one would know a fight had happened here. Time to move on, Riku muttered, shaking his head as he mounted up and rode off toward his next destination. The wreckage of a dwarf warship, and the nearest silver chest. Not long after Riku left, a few more demonia wandered to the bloody spot, roaring to the sky. They might not be very smart, but even they could tell a comrade had been killed. A week later, after a winding journey, Riku found 2 more bronze chests. One just had a box of premium chewing gum inside. The other was a bit better, a lux from the Asterisk War called Skywalk. It greatly increased movement speed and allowed for walking in the air. Originally, it needed manadite to function, but the system had modified it to run on stamina instead. Riku was pretty satisfied. Speed meant survival, and walking in the air was a bonus. And as for the lux's original requirement of a contract or toll for its use, the system had wiped all that out. Riku liked that. He didn't need a weapon that wouldn't obey. If it couldn't be controlled, it was as good as junk. Chapter 6 Holding his dust-proof cloak tight, Riku looked at the giant steel wreck in front of him and muttered, so this is a dwarf warship. It really is massive. On this planet, dwarves had extremely advanced technology. Airships, laser weapons, even nukes were nothing special to them. Dwarves might not be strong individually, but with their gear, they could wipe out humans in an instant. Ding. Dwarf warship wreckage detected. Value, 5,000 exchange points. Recycle? As Riku got close to the wreck, the system prompt made him grin. Just as he'd hoped, the warship could be recycled and was worth a fortune. This trip had been worth it. Not yet, Riku thought. He still had things to do. I just hope all the dwarves are dead. Or things could get messy. He tied up his horse, grabbed some rope, and then started to climb into the wreck using the skywalk. If someone from Earth saw him stepping through the air like this, they'd probably shout about cultivators and superpowers. The feeling of walking on air was strange, but Riku got used to it quickly. He moved carefully through the ship. Even though it had been ruined for a while, there was still a chance some dwarves or demonia might be lurking inside. Only when he finally found the dwarves' telescope, dismantled the spirit power source, and put it into his storage did he allow himself to relax. That was the official reason for this trip. Now he could focus on other things. System, recycle the dwarf warship wreck, Riku said calmly. With the chest hidden somewhere in this complicated mess, recycling the whole thing was the easiest solution. And he could use the exchange points for something else. Ding. Warship recycled. Value, 5,000 exchange points. Recycle complete. System, spend 5,000 points to redeem an exquisite chest, Riku ordered. Ding. 5,000 exchange points spent. Exquisite chest acquired. Right away, a chest radiating green light appeared before him. Excited, Riku placed his hand on the chest. With a click, it opened, revealing a ball of white light. Ding. Congratulations, you have obtained a mid-grade Chaos Energy Core. Mid-grade Chaos Energy Core, once absorbed, plants an energy seed in the user, allowing autonomous absorption of external energy and storage. If you understand one type of energy, Chaos Energy can convert to others. Ding. Mid-grade Chaos Energy Core detected. Value, 10,000 exchange points. Recycle? Don't recycle, just absorb it, Riku said, eyebrow raised. Obviously, this core was worth way more than the chest itself. He could technically recycle it for 2 more chests, but who knows if he'd get this lucky again. Besides, something that boosts his power and works across different worlds was exactly what he needed. Understood, the white light merged into Riku's body, and he felt a huge surge of power. Even his spirit, normally so faint in humans, became much stronger. Yeah, that's the good stuff, he said, enjoying the energy pulsing inside him. So this is spirit energy. He held out his hand, gathering the glowing green energy of the spirits around him. It was impressive. But even though I'm stronger now, I still don't have any real skills. It's just raw power. Riku shook his head. No point in getting cocky. Looks like I need to find a way to learn some magic from the elves, he thought, a smirk on his face. At that moment, the elves were still peacefully living in their forests, never imagining a human. Someone they saw as little more than a monkey was now targeting them. But first, let's test this power. Standing in midair, Riku looked down at a demonia troll, howling because the warship had vanished. So, there really was a demonia inside after all. With a shrug, Riku walked down to face the monster. A hulking brute 3 times his height, face twisted and terrifying. Provoked by a human, the troll roared and charged, wanting to tear Riku apart and devour him. But before it could attack, Riku blurred forward, his fist wrapped in spirit energy. One punch to the troll's gut sent it flying, body breaking apart in midair, blood and flesh everywhere. One hit. Instant kill. Chapter 7. This power and speed aren't bad at all. Riku grinned in satisfaction as he looked at the troll he'd just obliterated. Even though the skywalk boots had been modified by the system to use stamina instead of special energy, they could still run on various sources of power. The result of using spirit energy just now was obvious. The speed was so fast it was a blur. The boost in strength from the spirit energy wasn't bad either. After all, he'd only used about 1/10 of his full power. Time to try my luck with that silver chest. Riku shook his head and recycled the troll's corpse, then walked over to where silver chest was waiting a kilometer away. Silver chests have a much better chance of giving something good than bronze ones. Don't let me down. Riku placed his hand on the luxurious chest, noticeably fancier than any bronze chest. With a flash, the chest opened, releasing a brilliant orb of light. Ding. Congratulations, you have obtained the Reality Marble, Unlimited Blade Works, Unlimited Blade Works. From the Fate series, wielded by Emi Yashiru. Is a Reality Marble, a unique magic that lets him, even without noble phantasms, fight as a true heroic spirit. This Reality Marble contains the blueprint for all swords. If he's seen the original, he can recreate it. Any weapon projected once is registered inside the Reality Marble, and he can summon copies even without fully activating it. Unlimited Blade Works, huh? Didn't expect to score something this broken. That's like buying one, getting 100 for free. Riku's golden eyes lit up, his satisfaction overflowing. For someone like him, With lots of raw energy but no actual techniques, this was the perfect skill. He hadn't compared it directly, but his gut told him that if he converted his spirit energy to mana, he'd easily outclass Red Archer. Unlimited blade works should have far fewer limitations for him. Well. I sensed a spike in spirit energy, so I dropped by to take a look. And what do you know, something interesting really did happen. An amused voice interrupted Riku's thoughts, making him tense up. Angel. No, Flugel. Drumroll. Riku looked up at the figure in the sky and felt his heart sink. Her hair flowed down like a waterfall, shimmering with every color of the rainbow. She had delicate, almost ethereal features and flawless skin, an absolute beauty with the kind of body anyone would envy. But if you noticed a glowing, geometric halo floating near her head and the radiant wings at her back, you'd realize this was no ordinary beauty. For the strong, her appearance was cause for alarm. For the weak, it was pure despair. She was born to slaughter gods. The ultimate weapon created by the most powerful Exceed. The Flugel, 6th in the Exceed rankings, were angels of death. And this particular angel was a personal favorite of Riku's in his past life. Drumroll, the one-of-a-kind extra individual among the Flugel. He just hadn't expected their meeting to be like this. My. I didn't expect to be recognized. Am I that famous already? Drumroll hovered above, interest shining in her eyes, her voice sweet and dangerously playful. But Riku was in no mood to admire her beauty. The Flugel were disasters given form, harbingers of death. Worse yet, they collected the heads of other races' leaders as trophies. Drumroll, in particular, loved to act solo and challenge the top dogs. Normally, a Flugel wouldn't even spare a glance at some random bug crawling by. Clearly, Riku's earlier spirit energy surge, testing his new strength, had drawn Drumroll's attention. Bad luck. Major blunder. That was Riku's honest assessment. He'd never have guessed she'd be lurking nearby. But what really piques my curiosity? What are you, exactly? You're not an elf, not a beast, not a dapper. But you look almost like one of those pitiful humans. Except, no human could put out a spirit energy signature like that. Drumroll studied Riku like he was a fascinating new toy, her excitement only growing. This energy is beyond even the elves. Suddenly, her gaze grew wild. Mister, could I borrow your head for a little research? I've never seen a phenomenon quite like you. Can't you just let me go? I actually have somewhere I need to be, Riku said with a helpless sigh. Nope. You simply must become part of my collection. Drumroll's words were playful, her smile adorable. Yet every syllable was chilling. As she spoke, a black energy blade appeared in her hand, the spirit energy radiating from it downright terrifying. Well, that's how it is then. Riku's expression grew serious. Projection. Light gathered in his right hand, and with a flash, a splendid longsword took shape. To think you can project a real sword. Is this also a kind of magic? I haven't seen anything like it before. You're making me more and more curious, Drumroll said, her gaze burning as she stared at the elegant sword in Riku's hand. Facing Drumroll's obsession, Riku frowned slightly. The unlimited blade works he'd acquired was the one from Archer, meaning it included copies of all sorts of noble phantasms. He even had a version of Excalibur among them. But the sword he held now was just a replica. One level below the original. Just a B++ noble phantasm. Still, his energy was way beyond Archer's. He might even surpass the King of Knights herself. If Drumroll underestimated him, even if he couldn't win, he could still get away with ease. Even if I lack real combat skills or swordsmanship, backing down now would be pathetic. At the very least, I need to see where I actually stand. Riku's eyes grew sharp. The next instant, powered by spirit energy, his skywalk lit up beneath him. Riku left behind a string of afterimages as he charged at Drumroll in midair, sword gleaming with silver light. Clang. Drumroll, unfazed by the sudden attack, simply lifted her black energy blade and blocked his strike. The two swords clashed, sending sparks of energy flying everywhere. Not bad speed, Drumroll commented, eyes glinting. Almost on par with those beastmen brutes. But your strength is about average for a beastman. And your swings are a mess. Are you even trained? She leaned in, voice both curious and amused. Riku scowled. That's not your concern. He kicked off with Skywalk, breaking the deadlock and flashing to Drumroll's side, slashing at her again. Clang. This blow, too, was blocked. Drumroll summoned a flashing barrier of light that completely stopped Riku's sword. Drumroll then casually swung her own blade, cutting through the air as she aimed for Riku's neck. Slash. At the last second, Riku poured everything into Skywalk and barely dodged. Still, blood trickled from his face. The gap in strength is way too big. I'm not even close. He retreated, grimacing. He'd expected a difference, but not this much. Unknown life form, I suggest you use your trump cards now. Otherwise, I'll have trouble ranking your head for my collection, Drumroll said, floating above him, voice crazed with excitement. Right now, you're only LV.3. Among the Fleagle, collecting the heads of leaders and ranking them was a hobby. Dragons, level 5. Humans, seen as monkeys by most races, were below 0 in their system. And Drumroll, as an extra special Fleagle, loved to fight strong opponents and collect trophies, especially if they were unknowns. Riku knew all this, which is why he risked challenging her. To test his own power, otherwise, if it were a normal Fleagle, he'd run for his life. Those weapons of mass destruction wouldn't give you any chance, not even with his dimensional jump. Even with Shambhala, it wasn't safe. The Fleagle could use space manipulation too. If you want to see it so badly, fine, I'll show you, Riku said, lowering his sword. Drumroll's eyes shone even brighter, visibly thrilled. Then came the words of power, as Riku's clothes began to flutter and spirit energy surged, cutting them off from the world. I am the bone of my sword. Steel is my body, and fire is my blood. As the aria finished, both Riku and Drumroll felt the world twist. Drumroll's eyes went wide in disbelief. The scenery had changed completely. All around was endless darkness, save for a single bright moon shining like hope itself. The ground was a desert of sand dunes. Everywhere, countless strange and powerful swords were stabbed into the earth. What is this place? Drumroll said in awe. Welcome to my world, Fleagle. Drumroll, Riku replied, raising his sword coolly. Chapter 8 Your world? Drumroll's curiosity only grew, and she smiled, clearly entertained. So, this is a pocket world. I'm surprised you can create one. Maybe I should upgrade your head collection ranking again. I call it Unlimited Blade Works. This is the world that reflects my heart, Riku said calmly, looking up. Unlimited Blade Works takes on a different appearance depending on its user. For Amiya, it's a wasteland covered in countless swords, burning fires dancing along the horizon, and giant gears turning in the dark sky, like a forge. For Shiru, it's a red field at sunset, endless swords sticking from the ground and nothing else. Enjoy it while you can, Fleagle. Drumroll. Riku shouted, nearly roaring. As soon as he spoke, the noble phantasms buried in the sand all around began to float up, aiming at Drumroll. Riku's magic and power far surpassed the originals. What he did here was even more overwhelming than Archer or Shiru. Whoosh! 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 Dozens of legendary swords shot through the air at Drumroll, the roar of their flight echoing through the domain. Clang! Drumroll's expression remained relaxed, almost delighted. She simply held out her left hand, conjuring a defensive spell. It's worth noting, since this was Riku's world, there were no outside spirits here. Drumroll could only draw on the spirit energy within herself, which actually weakened her a little. A series of impacts echoed as the noble phantasms hammered her shield, but only left surface marks. They couldn't break through. Drumroll, the special Fleagle, was a defect. An outlier. When she was first created, her power was below the standard Fleagle. But over years of battling the strongest warriors and constantly learning, she became one of the most powerful of her race. The barrier she now used was something she'd adapted from the elves' magic, even stronger than the defensive spells all Fleagle were granted at creation. That's it? I'm a little disappointed, Drumroll said, shaking her head. This is only about as strong as high-level elven magic. It's not a threat to me. Oh, is that so? Riku didn't get angry at her taunt. His golden eyes were ice-cold. Crack. Suddenly, one special sword struck the shield. A clear, sharp sound rang out. Drumroll's barrier, which could resist even dragonoid attacks, was pierced by a single blow, the sword speeding straight at her. Drumroll's eyes flashed and she instantly vanished, appearing elsewhere in the sky. The sword missing its target. Oh? You slipped a sword with anti-magic properties into that barrage. All the other attacks were a distraction, weren't they? Now Drumroll looked serious, her killing intent exploding outward. Fleagle spatial magic, called spatial shift. What a troublesome power, Riku said regretfully. I was hoping that last strike would at least hurt you a bit. Fleagle can teleport anywhere within their line of sight and, if they've marked a location, can instantly travel to it, much like the Tegu Shambhala, but even more convenient. Hee hee. You actually surprised me for a moment there, Drumroll giggled with a mad glint in her eye. Beautiful face or not, her mania was unsettling. So to properly preserve your rare head, I guess I'll get serious now, she said, instantly shifting from playful to deadly. Drumroll vanished, appearing behind Riku and slashing at his neck with her black energy sword. Clang. But several of the projected swords Riku had set to guard him shot over, intercepting her attack. Even so, Jibral's sword sliced through them like butter. But that brief moment was enough for Riku to escape, boosted by Skywalk. He quickly put distance between them and unleashed a barrage of noble phantasms at Jibral. Hundreds of swords swarmed, a dazzling spectacle. But Riku didn't think this would be enough to beat such a powerful flugel. He narrowed his eyes and poured all his energy into the imitation Excalibur in his hands. The next strike would be the deciding one. A surge of energy flooded into Excalibur, making the sword blaze with brilliant light. Sparks scattered in every direction, the sand around Riku pushed away by an invisible force. "Why can't you just give me your head like a good boy?" Jibral huffed, almost pouting as she teleported away using her spatial shift, her view obscured by the light. But no matter how cute she looked, no one could mistake her for anything but a monster. "This next attack. If you think you can block it, go ahead and try, Flugel," Riku shouted, confidence and defiance clear on his face as he stared up at Jibral in the sky. "I can sense the power from here. You're trying to bait me into a head-on clash, aren't you?" Jibral grinned, eyes sparkling with interest. "Well, you've got my attention, so I'll humor you. Just this once." Her own energy surged, condensing into a black spear crackling with lightning. A weapon of pure, terrifying destruction. Excalibur. Riku roared, unleashing a blinding beam of energy that shot straight at Jibral, who hovered in a swirling shield of swords. "Sky Strike." Jibral called out, matching him. Her energy spear colliding with Riku's light beam in midair. The two attacks smashed together, like a meteor striking the earth. Shockwaves exploded outwards, lightning flashed, and the very air seemed to tremble as the two powers wrestled for dominance. "Ha!" Riku, refusing to back down, poured even more energy into the clash, pushing Jibral's attack back. "Just a little. How interesting. But my attacks aren't that simple." Jibral laughed, cranking up her power and restoring the stalemate. She really wanted to see just how far Riku could go. Riku, however, only smirked. In the heart of the collision, something changed. With a thunderous boom, the combined energies erupted, an apocalyptic blast tearing through the entire world of the reality marble. The shockwave was so intense, it began to shatter the fabric of Unlimited Bladeworks itself. "Damn you!" Jibral hissed, eyes wide as she realized what Riku was doing. He was using her power as a catalyst for the explosion. Was he really trying to take her down with him? The blast was enough to seriously wound even her, but killing her? Not quite. It would, however, obliterate Riku. "My precious specimen." Jibral groaned, teeth clenched. Her main concern wasn't her own survival, but that Riku's head, her new collectible, would be destroyed before she could claim it. With so much energy flying around, even her teleportation wasn't totally safe. One wrong move, and she'd be badly hurt. But unknown to Jibral, Riku had planned for this all along. Just before the shockwave hit, he'd activated his best defensive noble phantasm. Roaiaz. Even if fake was enough to absorb some of the explosion. And before the last shield broke, Riku had already used the Tegu, Shambhala, to teleport himself to safety. Seconds later, the blast faded. Unlimited Bladeworks was gone, and the land outside had been carved into a massive crater. Jibral hovered above, clothes torn and a few new wounds showing. She was livid. "Damn it. My rare specimen is gone." If she'd known Riku would risk everything, she would have just gone all out and killed him quickly. But she didn't realize that this was exactly what Riku was counting on. If Jibral had really gone for the kill, he'd have used Shambhala to escape right away, exposing his spatial ability, but saving his life. Instead, everything had gone just as he planned. Jibral thought he was dead, so she wouldn't be chasing him across the world. For now. But Riku had a feeling they'd cross swords again someday. And next time, things might end very differently. Chapter 9. Jibral left upset. Far away, Riku took a deep breath. He looked really pale. This was his first serious fight since gaining power. Riku was actually pretty satisfied, considering he had almost no combat experience and still managed to go toe-to-toe with Jibral. He was also a bit relieved. Good thing everything went as planned, or getting away would have been a lot harder. But even now, he was exhausted. Using so many big moves in a row, especially when he was still not used to his new powers, had left him drained. Thank goodness the Chaos Energy Seed can soak up energy from the surroundings without causing a spirit reaction. Otherwise, recovering my strength would have been a nightmare, Riku thought, shaking his head. Next up, more chests, he decided, opening the map and scanning the locations. He already had the dwarf telescope and with Shambhala, he wasn't worried about returning late. It was smarter to use the time to get even stronger. I'll have to take the long way. If the crazy Flugel finds me again, escaping won't be so easy next time, Riku thought. The Flugel could sense spatial abilities easily, And if he wasn't careful, Drumroll could track him down. The last time he escaped, the explosion masked the spatial waves, which was the only reason he got away. After a day of sneaking around, Riku made it hundreds of kilometers away. Skywalk made travel faster, but he held back his speed so he wouldn't attract attention. He ran into a few demonia on the way, but didn't fight or recycle their corpses. It wasn't worth the risk, not right after clashing with Drumroll. On top of a cold mountain, Riku finally found a silver chest and let out a sigh of relief. That day, he also opened 3 bronze chests along the way. But it was like his luck had run out. The stuff he got was just weird. The first bronze chest gave him a pack of sanitary pads. What am I supposed to do with these? Am I supposed to take them back to Kura for the girls? That would be weird as hell. The second chest? A case of instant noodles. Okay, food is valuable here, but I was hoping for something to boost my strength. Like another gene potion. The third chest was a little better, sword mastery. At least I won't be swinging my sword around like an idiot anymore. Even Drumroll made fun of me for that. Let's hope the silver chest is better. I need something strong if I'm ever going to fight the war beast god or Fleegle head on, Riku muttered. He placed his hand on the silver chest. With a flash of light, it opened, and a glowing orb appeared. Ding. Congratulations, you have received the Divine Escape Talisman. Divine Escape Talisman, when used, allows you to move through barriers and terrain for a short distance. Also grants invisibility for 1 hour, perfectly hiding your presence. Nice, an escape tool. Used well, it could save my life, Riku thought, eyes bright with excitement. Wait. Why am I immediately thinking about escape? Riku frowned, suddenly realizing. I'm supposed to be aiming higher, not just running away. The elf capital. The platinum chest. Riku rubbed his chin, considering. The Divine Escape Talisman might help him get the platinum chest, but the elves were full of sorcerers, and at best, the talisman would get him past their barriers. And if the timeline was the same as the original, Drumroll would destroy the elf capital within a year, turning it into a mess. So, he figured, it'd be easier to get that chest later. Vampires. I don't know much about them. Dwarves. Should I just recycle all their warships for points? Riku grinned. Dwarf warships were valuable. Lots of exchange points. Kind reminder, items still under someone's control cannot be recycled, useless. Riku clicked his tongue, annoyed. Looks like the system didn't want him farming points that easily. The dwarves are trouble anyway. Their tech might even detect me. Too risky for now, he reasoned. That just leaves. Riku's gaze slowly shifted to a different trace on the map. Chapter 10 Beasts, Riku muttered, narrowing his eyes as he looked at a red marker on the map. In terms of raw power, they weren't that strong. Sure, an average beast could easily slaughter humans, leaving people with no chance to fight back, but compared to Riku now, they didn't seem that tough. Some beasts could use blood destruction, a special move that let them break the limits of their bodies and fight way above their level, but those were rare. Most weren't nearly that powerful. Plus, with the Divine Escape Talisman's ability to completely mask his presence, Riku was basically their worst nightmare. Even if they somehow did notice him, he could just use Shambhala to teleport away, leaving them in the dust. Alright, guess I've found my next target, Riku said with a faint smirk. Right then, a sudden commotion made Riku's eyes narrow. He looked over, senses sharper than ever thanks to the gene enhancement serum. He spotted a group of beasts climbing up the cliffs. A dozen or so, moving carefully. What are the beasts doing here? Riku thought, raising an eyebrow. Curious, he quickly hid himself. From his angle, he could see the beasts, but they hadn't spotted him. If they had, they'd already be charging over, full of hostility. The only problem was the scent. Beasts had sharper senses than just about any other race. Thinking fast, Riku grabbed an item from his storage space to mask his smell. He could take these beasts in a fight, but he was way more interested in what they were up to. After all, who'd risk their lives coming out to a place like this for no reason? Captain Dora, I smell something weird, one of the beasts said as they reached the top, wrinkling his nose and glancing at the large, burly tiger man in front. Don't make a big deal out of it. Just hurry up and find that thing, the one called Dora said in a gruff voice. Understood, the rest replied, their expressions going serious as they started searching the mountain. That thing? Riku's curiosity was piqued. It was obvious these beasts had a purpose. And whatever they were looking for must be important. As he pondered, one of the beasts wandered dangerously close. Sensing this, Riku's golden eyes grew cold. He was ready to strike if needed. Captain Dora, I found it. Over here. One beast suddenly shouted in delight. That was quick. Looks like we're in luck this time. Dora said, visibly pleased. The werebeast near Riku forgot all about him, rushing over to join his excited comrades. What did they find? Riku wondered, peeking over the rock to get a better look. He saw Dora holding a blood-red fruit, dirt still clinging to it. It had clearly just been dug up. Ha ha ha. With this fruit, the princess will become even stronger. She'll be able to use blood destruction with no side effects, and the boost will be even greater, Dora said gleefully. This is the 8th one. If we find the 9th next year, the princess will be able to rival the top-tier races. Another werebeast added, just as excited. Use blood destruction with no side effects? Rival the top races? Riku's eyes narrowed further. Every race had its secrets, but he'd never imagined he'd stumble on the werebeasts by pure luck. Blood destruction was powerful, but it still couldn't compare to the Flugel. The top 6 races were basically embodiments of pure concepts. Other than a few special ex machina, nothing below the top 6 could really stand against them. They weren't even close. Just look at Drumroll. She wiped out the elves' capital with a single strike and hunted the rest down. Compared to the elves, the werebeasts were even further behind. The gap was enormous. But with this fruit, they might actually stand a chance against the Flugel. That was a scary thought. Who's there? Suddenly, Dora turned, sharp-beast eyes locking on to Riku's hiding spot. Even though Riku was pretty well hidden, the werebeast's senses picked up on him. If I say I'm just passing by, will you believe me? Since he'd already been spotted, Riku didn't bother hiding anymore. He stood up with a shrug, totally calm. A human? The werebeasts, who'd been tense and ready for a fight, all froze, exchanging confused looks. They were all familiar with humans. They'd killed plenty, maybe even eaten a few. Hey! Who'd have thought a human would come out here, and now you've learned our secret. That means we can't let you go, Dora said, baring his fangs with a savage grin. Get him. Looks like we're having fresh meat tonight. With that, he gave the order to attack. Die, human. At Captain Dora's command, one of the werebeasts leapt at Riku with frightening speed. His face was twisted with rage, claws bared, fist clenched tight as he aimed to smash the weak human's head in a single blow. But the werebeast was doomed to disappointment. The moment he lunged, Riku's speed outclassed him completely. In a blur, Riku appeared right in front of him and coolly delivered a single punch. Bam! Crack! In an instant, the werebeast was sent flying, a sharp crack echoing through the air. He crashed to the ground, writhing and clutching his throat, coughing up blood, his eyes wide in disbelief. Even though werebeasts are much tougher than humans, with his throat crushed, death was only a matter of time. His strong vitality just meant he had to suffer longer, watching the end come. Damn it! Seeing his comrade instantly killed, Captain Dora erupted in fury, his savage gaze locked on Riku. You! Are you really human? Dora snarled, murder in his voice. Humans were considered the weakest of the weak. A universal truth in this world. The idea that one of them could kill a werebeast in one hit was unthinkable. Afraid so, Riku replied coldly, energy swirling in his hands as he materialized a pair of short swords, Kanzo and Bakuya, archers' favorites. A human? Using spirit energy? Your physical strength isn't much less than ours. Dora's eyes narrowed, his worldview cracking. The other werebeasts, while glaring at Riku with hatred, were clearly shocked as well. This was exactly the reaction Riku wanted. He activated Skywalk, turning into a blur as he launched himself into the midst of the werebeasts. Kill him. Tear him apart. Roared one, their sharp senses finally catching up to his speed. Slash. But before they could react, Riku's blade flashed, decapitating another werebeast in a spray of blood. Fast, precise, ruthless. Nothing like the wild, unskilled attacks of the day before. Riku was now a master swordsman, thanks to his new skill. Bastard! Dora's rage exploded as yet another of his comrades fell. He hurled himself at Riku like a cannonball, far faster and stronger than any of the others. A true werebeast elite. But even he couldn't lay a finger on Riku. Slash. The scene turned into a massacre. Every few seconds, another werebeast fell under Riku's blade. In no time, the group of more than a dozen had been reduced to just 5. You leave me no choice, human. Dora snarled, bloodlust practically tangible. Suddenly, a powerful blood-red aura exploded from Dora's huge frame. Blood destruction. Dora roared. Red lines appeared all over his body, his veins bulged, his claws grew, and his presence surged to monstrous levels. The werebeast's secret art. Blood destruction, Riku muttered, narrowing his eyes and backing off a little. He knew exactly what this meant. Dora was going berserk. Even if activating blood destruction might attract other powerful races, he clearly didn't care anymore. Roar. As the power surged, Dora let out a howl so loud it hurt Riku's ears. The ground shattered beneath his feet as Dora vanished and reappeared right in front of Riku, claws gleaming with killing intent. His speed was now even greater than Riku's, pushing past all limits. Riku's eyes widened. At the last second, he raised Kanzu and Bakuya to block, coating them in energy. Clang. Crack. A powerful clash sent Riku flying back, pain stabbing through him as his swords were smashed to pieces. He quickly activated Skywalk to steady himself in the air, but his whole body felt battered, blood surging in his veins. Blood destruction really is insane. This kind of speed and power. Even the Fleagle can't match a Werebeast in pure physical stats when they're using it. The Fleagle only reach the peak of the physical limit. But Werebeasts break it. Don't think flying will let you escape. Dora snarled, glaring up at Riku in the sky. The next instant, he kicked off the ground so hard he left a crater, launching himself into the air like a missile, going all out for the kill. Chapter 11. As Dora shot at him like lightning, Riku's eyes narrowed, shifting to the side in a flash to dodge the attack. Dora's punch hit nothing but air, but the shock wave alone made Riku's scalp tingle. If that landed, I'd be nothing but a blood mist. Roar. Dora, frustrated by the miss, glared at Riku and, unbelievably, stepped on air to dash sideways, charging again. This was pure physical insanity. Something that should have broken the laws of physics. If Newton saw this, he'd be rolling in his grave. Clang. In that crucial moment, Riku focused his spirit energy and created a shield. Dora appeared before him in an instant and slammed his fist into the shield. With a thunderous bang, Riku was blasted backward, but with his current power, Dora still couldn't break through. How long do you think you can last, human? Dora bellowed, face twisted in rage as he once again kicked off the air, attacking Riku with the frenzy of a wild beast. Fighting a Werebeast using blood destruction was a nightmare. Their strength and speed were off the charts. They were nearly untouchable, and if you got hit, you'd die on the spot. Of course, this wasn't an issue for a Fleagle, who could just nuke everything. But Riku needed to hold back if he wanted to claim the fruit later. He's done for. I don't know why this human is so strong, but against blood destruction, he doesn't stand a chance. Captain Dora is one of the top Werebeasts. He'll crush that human in no time. The surviving Werebeasts bared their fangs, sure of Riku's defeat. Whatever. Time to use this. While dodging untanking Dora's attacks, Riku focused, forming a bow and the Kaligbog 2 archer's spiral arrow. He knocked the Kaligbog 2 to the bowstring. Ha! You think you can hit me with a toy like that? Don't kid yourself. Dora roared, pouring even more force into his blows. Crack. With another shattering sound, Riku's spirit shield was covered in spiderweb cracks. Dora's smile grew savage. Just one more hit, and the shell would break. But before Dora could attack again, Riku's body suddenly shimmered with violet light. And he disappeared. Where did he go? Crap. Dora's beast instincts screamed, and he whirled around. Shunk. Too late. Kaligbog 2 pierced Dora's chest at point-blank range, tearing through his defenses and spraying blood everywhere. Gah. Dora stared at the hole in his chest, disbelief and agony written all over his face. Damn you. Wounded beasts are always the most dangerous. Dora swung his massive claw behind him, desperate for revenge. But Riku blinked away, face unreadable, easily dodging the attack. Spatial teleportation. You even have powers like that. Dora muttered, a broken smile on his lips, before coughing blood and collapsing. He'd never imagined he'd be toyed with by a human. You really thought I was just running and defending for no reason? Riku said coldly, looking down at Dora's corpse. Shambhala could only teleport to preset coordinates. All of this had been Riku's plan from the start. This so-called elite had been doomed from the very beginning. As Dora's body fell, Riku used Sky Stride to blur to his side and yank off the bag at his waist, tossing it into his storage. Captain Dora. The remaining Werebeasts finally realized what happened, faces twisted with disbelief. Their leader, the strongest among them, a master of blood destruction, had been killed. You damn human. We'll tear you apart. The last 4 Werebeasts went berserk, leaping at Riku with all the ferocity their bodies could muster. But without blood destruction, they were just targets driven by hatred, not reason. The only ones still alive at this point were the stronger Werebeasts in the group, but they'd all lost their minds to rage. Without the ability to maneuver in the air, they were easy pickings for Riku. He took them out like chickens. I was planning to go to the Werebeast capital anyway, but I guess I got a preview. Now I know what the average Werebeast can do, Riku said, glancing over the bodies scattered across the mountaintop. He let out a slow breath. Regular Werebeast soldiers were within his expectations. About as strong as low-tier Demonia. The elite ones were trickier, but still beatable for Riku now. But those like Dora, who could use blood destruction, were on another level entirely. It took real strategy to bring them down. Breaking the limits of the physical body really was insanely powerful. That meant, when heading to the Werebeast homeland, Riku would have to watch out for any of their blood destruction elites. And most of all, the Princess Dora mentioned. She'd already consumed 7 of those strange red fruits, apparently putting her on par with the Flugel. Definitely not someone to take lightly. After that, Riku recycled all the Werebeast corpses on the mountaintop. 15 in total. The regular ones netted him 100 exchange points each. The tougher ones were worth 200. As for Dora, he was a whopping 1,000 points. No comparison. Altogether, Riku got 2,800 points, plus another 200 for 2 Demonia from earlier. He was back up to 3,000 exchange points. Figures, killing is the quickest way to get rich. System, are you encouraging me to go on a rampage or something? Riku grumbled. The system, as always, said nothing. Geez, not even a peep. Some people get cute Lili or goddess-type systems. I just get a dumb hunk of junk, Riku sighed. He then took out Dora's backpack from his storage. Ding. Selene crystals detected. Value, 3,000 exchange points. Recycle? Ding. Blood essence fruit detected. Value, 10,000 exchange points. Recycle? This time, the system finally chimed in, giving 2 prompts at once. Hearing that, Riku's eyes sparkled, and a big grin spread across his face. Robbery really is the path to riches. This single fruit is worth 10,000 exchange points. Way more than a dwarf battleship. Even an abandoned dwarf warship was only worth 5,000. So, these are Selene crystals? What are they for? Riku asked, opening the bag and seeing several bluish stones inside. Selene crystals are rare materials for constructing large-scale energy cannons and defensive barriers. Not much use for me. Recycle them, Riku said, waving his hand dismissively. Ding. Recycle successful. You have received 3,000 exchange points, and what about the blood essence fruit? Is it any good for me? Riku continued. He knew the basics, but wanted to be sure before deciding to eat it or cash it in. The blood essence fruit is a special fruit compatible with Werebeast bloodlines. It enhances their physical attributes and bloodline powers, letting them use blood destruction with no side effects. It's also useful for the host. System analysis indicates that if the host eats the fruit, their physical abilities will also surpass the normal limits of the human body, so it really is a power-up. Guess that 10,000 point value isn't an exaggeration, Riku said, eyes gleaming with anticipation. He'd already seen how strong breaking the physical limit was. If he could do the same, he'd have no weaknesses left. That thought made Riku a little uneasy. If the Werebeast princess was that strong just by default, she'd be a monster even among her own kind. Smells kind of like apples. Still, Riku wasn't one to hesitate. He calmly took the blood essence fruit and ate it, even commenting on the taste. A second later, he felt awful. It was as if a fire had ignited inside him, heat flooding his entire body. Even his skin started to ooze out filth, as if the fruit was purging impurities from his body. The smell was so bad, Riku almost passed out from his enhanced senses. He immediately used Shambhala to teleport to one of his marked locations. That happened to be by a big river. Without hesitation, he stripped and dove in, scrubbing himself clean. The burning feeling gradually faded, though he swore the river nearly started to steam. After a while, the heat faded, replaced by a sense of overwhelming strength. Chapter 12 Boom. Splash. Feeling the power in his new body, Riku couldn't help but throw a punch underwater. Instantly, there was a thunderous crash and a column of water shot into the sky, the river churning violently. This kind of strength. It's amazing. Riku muttered in excitement. Then, with a single step on the water, he shot straight into the air, breaking the laws of physics entirely. Even without relying on skywalk, he could stomp the air and move freely above the ground. It was exactly like the feat the Werebeast captain, Dora, had demonstrated before. After messing around for a bit and getting used to the new strength, Riku headed for the shore. Honestly, he felt a bit embarrassed. He was still stark naked. He wasn't about to run around with nothing on. My whole body's been remodeled. My skin is so white. I'm supposed to be a guy. Riku complained, noticing how all the dirt had been washed away, leaving his skin unnaturally clean. No joke, even Crone couldn't compete with him now. He grabbed his clothes, washed them in the river, then used his energy to dry them before getting dressed again. A quick bath. He felt refreshed. I've got 6,000 exchange points now. I could save up for a superior chest, but it's better to get stronger first. Once I'm stronger, earning more points will be way easier, Riku mused, deciding to spend all his points for now. System, exchange for 1 common chest and 1 exquisite chest. Riku gave the order in his mind. Understood. 6,000 exchange points deducted. Chest exchange successful. Suddenly, a jade green chest and an ordinary white chest appeared before him. Okay, let's hope I get something useful. Riku's golden eyes gleamed as he reached for the white chest first. With a click, the chest opened, and the system's voice followed. Ding. Congratulations, you have opened a common chest and obtained an enhanced soldier pill. Enhanced soldier pill restores 1/3 of your energy and all stamina. Note, effectiveness varies according to the user's strength. Not bad at all. Riku grinned in satisfaction. This kind of item, used well, could be a lifesaver. Next, he eagerly placed his hand on the jade green chest. Good start. Hopefully, the second chest wouldn't disappoint. As soon as he touched it, the chest opened, and the system announced, Ding. Congratulations, you have opened an exquisite chest and obtained the taijutsu. 8 gates, 8 inner gates, from Naruto, a forbidden taijutsu technique that releases the body's restraints on chakra, letting the user unleash massive power. There are 8 gates. Gate of opening, gate of rest, gate of life, gate of pain, gate of limit, gate of view, gate of wonder, gate of death. Opening each gate pushes the user's abilities further beyond their natural limits, but causes increasing bodily harm. Opening all 8 gates formation gives overwhelming strength for a short time, but at the cost of burning out your own life. 8 gates. Can't believe I got this. Riku's eyes widened with joy at the system's explanation. The 8 gates. Might Guy's signature move. By the end, the 8th gate nearly let him kick out the series' final boss. People called him the king of kicks for a reason. Pulling this as a reward was a godsend for Riku right now. A true trump card. If not for its side effects, 8 gates would probably qualify as a superior chest prize, maybe even one of the best. Besides, Riku's body had now totally broken through normal human limits. While he hadn't compared himself to Night Guy, he was probably even tougher by now. As long as he didn't use the 8th gate, there shouldn't be much risk. 6,000 points for these 2 items. Absolutely worth it. Even calm old Riku couldn't help but get a little fired up. His raw power had just skyrocketed. Next stop, the Beast Nation. Hope it doesn't disappoint me. Riku glanced at his map, then set off at once. His figure vanished in a blur. At least twice as fast as before. And this was him holding back, still unfamiliar with the full extent of his upgraded body. Meanwhile, Drumroll soared through the sky, thoroughly annoyed. The day before, she'd accidentally let her prey kill himself, so she'd gone off to challenge a top-ranked race. The Giants, 5th in the hierarchy. But those guys wouldn't even face her one-on-one. Instead, they ganged up on her. It all ended in a mess, leaving her even more annoyed, looking to relieve some stress. Chapter 13. Those damn Gigants. So huge, but such cowards, Drumroll grumbled, flying through the sky with an annoyed look on her face. Even when she was angry, her beauty was undeniable. Though if a Gigant overheard her now, he'd probably die from frustration. Every day, she'd show up and harass them. At first, fighting was exciting, but thanks to the absurd spatial powers of a Fleagle, it was impossible to pin her down. The Gigants, on the other hand, always ended up battered and bruised. Every time Drumroll left, she'd heal her wounds and come right back. It was maddening for her opponents. Ugh! Suddenly, a surge of energy ran through Drumroll's body. She found herself unable to fly, falling straight out of the sky. Thud. She crashed headfirst into something impossibly hard, and a giant lump immediately formed on her head. Drumroll winced in pain. It wasn't just a rock. She'd smacked right into a powerful magical barrier. As the barrier appeared, the area beneath it was revealed, vibrant flowers, houses built from trees, and countless humanoid figures with pointed ears and other distinctive features. This was Elvengard, the home of the elves, ranked 7th among the sentient races, famed for their advanced magic. Blocking me from flying? You filthy monkeys of the forest. Already in a bad mood, Drumroll completely lost her patience after hitting her head. Her expression twisted in frustration. She clenched her teeth, summoning spirit energy into her hand, and formed a massive, jet-black energy sword, swinging it at the barrier. Clang. Crack. The impact sounded like thunder, shaking the air. The magical barrier trembled, cracks forming instantly. What's going on? Panic erupted below. Among the elves, a beautiful golden-haired woman's eyes narrowed as she looked up at Drumroll. Damn it, it's a Fleagle. And not just any Fleagle. It's the war maniac Drumroll. She spat. What do we do, Lady Shinku? Cried another elf at her side. Though elves were 7th in the ranking. Right after the Fleagle at 6th. There was a world of difference. Elves were mortal beings, Fleagle were living incarnations of concepts. Seal the archives, protect the Grimoire, and prepare for full defense. Shinku ordered grimly. She was a prodigy among the elves, already an octocaster, capable of casting 8 advanced spells at once, but even that was no match for a flugel. Within moments, alarms blared, and thousands of elves poured their power into strengthening the barrier. "Hey, just a turtle shell," Drumroll scoffed, hacking at the barrier a few more times. The elves below worked desperately to reinforce it, and soon, ordinary attacks weren't enough to break through. Drumroll frowned, then smiled coldly. Wings flared, her spirit power surged, and the light ring around her head spun faster and faster. She raised her right hand, gathering overwhelming energy. Not good. That's Heavenly Smite, the Flugel's ultimate attack. All units, brace for impact. Lady Shinku shouted, pupils contracting in terror. Panic swept the elves. Everyone channeled spirit energy, preparing for the worst. Heavenly Smite. It was futile. With a cold laugh, Drumroll hurled a blast containing more than 90% of her power. Drumroll herself teleported to a safe distance, not wanting to be caught in her own attack like last time. The barrier's first layer shattered like paper. The light from Heavenly Smite grew ever more dazzling. A moment later, the attack exploded, utterly obliterating the barrier, sweeping through Elvengard and destroying almost everything in its path. Half the elves were instantly reduced to ashes. The rest, led by Shinku and carrying the Grimoire, escaped in a panic. Monkeys or not, they're good for something. That felt so much better, Drumroll purred from a distance, stretching lazily as she admired the destruction. As the smoke cleared, black clouds rose into the sky. Drumroll rushed toward the ruins, eager to claim the Grimoire and anything else of value. For her, elves had their uses. Mainly for their magical inventions, which could enhance her power even more. Meanwhile, Riku had no idea that, thanks to his earlier battle with Drumroll, the butterfly effect had changed the timeline. Drumroll had destroyed Elvengard half a year ahead of schedule. Chapter 14. The Were-Beast Nation lay far to the north, and even for Riku, it took 3 days to reach. Along the way, he slaughtered a few demonias, collecting another 2,000 exchange points. With his strength now, he didn't need to avoid every small fry anymore. As long as he didn't run into any of the first 6 races, everything was fine. Even if he did, as long as it wasn't someone on Drumroll's level, he could still run away. Of course, Riku wasn't just killing demonias, he also gathered 5 treasure chests. One was silver, the other 4 were bronze. Unfortunately, the loot this time was underwhelming. The 4 bronze chests contained pure junk. At least for Riku at this stage. A hacker master skill. What good was that in this world? Hack a dwarf warship? Sorry, this so-called hacker master only came with knowledge from Earth. An infinite ammo revolver. Only good for normal humans or animals. It couldn't scratch anything here. A supercharged stink bomb. He almost tossed it immediately, but grudgingly stored it away. The last bronze chest was at least practical. A high-tech gadget that could create clothing from ambient particles. Handy, but zero help in battle. As for the silver chest, it was debatable, an Asaki from Bleach. But you'd have to awaken it yourself. What a pain. Now that Riku was this strong, a single sword wouldn't matter much. There's about half a day left to the Were-Beast capital, but there's a gold chest nearby. If I grab it, it'll cost a few extra hours, Riku muttered. Fine, let's go for the gold chest first. It's always safer to have more trump cards before entering Were-Beast territory. He changed direction. 3 hours later, Riku found himself in a canyon, eerie enough to make anyone's skin crawl. Even Riku frowned, sensing trouble. Strange noises echoed, Riku's golden eyes narrowed. Behind him, several enormous, rotting mutant snakes slithered out, tongues flicking. At the same time, other demonias appeared. So, I wandered into a demonia nest. No wonder it wasn't going to be simple, Riku sighed. Silver and bronze chests weren't so hard to get, but a gold chest was different. Suddenly, the 5 giant rotting snakes bared their fangs and spat clouds of black poison at Riku. Stones dissolved wherever the miasma touched. Deadly stuff. Riku frowned, stomped the ground, blasted out a crater, and shot up into the sky. With Skywalk, he hovered 100 meters in the air, spirit energy gathering in his hand. Projection. With that, a bow and a Cattlebug 2 materialized. Whoosh. Riku drew the Cattlebug 2, knocked it, and fired downward. A piercing sound ripped through the air. The spiral sword skewered one of the giant snakes, which let out an agonized scream as black blood splattered. Boom. The resulting blast was like an intercontinental missile going off, shredding several snakes. But Riku didn't stop. He kept firing swords, and explosions echoed through the canyon. Down below, every demonia was blasted to pieces. Easy shooting, Riku murmured, relaxing. Just then, the air was torn by a new attack. Instantly, Riku used Shambhala to teleport. The spot where he'd just stood was sliced open by a strike that warped the air itself. Had he stayed, he'd have been meat paste. A demonia? Or a lord-level demonia, some kind of phantasma? Riku looked up, eyes sharp. It was a massive eagle, 5 times the size of a normal bird of prey. No feathers, just black metallic plates, talons and a beak razor sharp, and eyes blood red and cunning. The giant eagle's presence was overwhelming, like a true apex predator. Chapter 15. Still, lord-level demonias were no joke. Most demonias had no intelligence, just instinct to kill. But this monster knew how to ambush, meaning it was smart. Scree! The black eagle screeched, shaking the air. It dove at Riku, a black lightning bolt. Even with his body beyond human limits, Riku barely reacted. He dodged, kicked off the air, and punched the eagle in the gut. Wham! The eagle was sent flying, tumbling through the sky. It righted itself, screamed in fury, and dove again, beak glowing with energy. It's unharmed? This defense is nuts. Riku grimaced. No time for distraction. As the eagle attacked like lightning, Riku darted through the air in a blur. That only made the eagle angrier. It unleashed a black energy beam. Riku's instincts screamed. He dodged, barely missing the sweeping pillar of energy. Boom. The blast hit the canyon, detonating with nuclear force. Shockwaves tore through the earth, leaving a bottomless crater. Even midair, the devastation below made Riku shiver. If he'd taken that hit, he'd be dust. The eagle's gaze was cruel, gathering power for another attack. TCH. You think I'm just prey? Let's see who the real monster is. For once, Riku was genuinely angry at being hunted. First gate, gate of opening. Open. Second gate, gate of rest. Open. Third gate, gate of life. Open. He roared, green energy bursting from his body, his power surging. Zep. The eagle fired another energy cannon, but this time, Riku wasn't there. He teleported behind it and closed the gap. Bam. Splat. Riku's punch blasted through the eagle's defenses, leaving a crater in its belly. The beast screamed, rocketing skyward. Fourth gate, gate of pain. Open. Riku bellowed. His aura deepened, power swelling again. If the first 3 gates were safe, the fourth was dangerous. Even life-threatening. But the power-up was monstrous. With his already superhuman body, the boost was insane. Kaboom. Riku kicked off the air, shattering it. He rocketed up, closing in just as the eagle steadied itself. He punched again, shockwaves blasting the air. The eagle lashed out, but... Crack. Riku's fist shattered its talons. The eagle howled in pain, but Riku zipped above and hammered its head. Crunch. The eagle's eye burst, its skull caving in, and the corpse plummeted into the crater below. Boom. The impact deepened the pit, cracks spider-webbing out. I can't believe this thing still isn't dead. What a tough beast. Even from high above, Riku's sharpened senses could clearly see through the settling dust. The battered black hawk was still struggling at the bottom of the crater. Humphrey, let's see if you're dead this time. Riku frowned, then launched himself down from the sky like a cannonball. He landed with explosive force, stomping the black hawk's head deeper into the ground, leaving its skull even more caved in. For several minutes, thunderous impacts echoed as rocks and dirt were thrown into the air, the whole crater shaking from the violence. The black hawk's cries grew more and more pitiful, but Riku showed no mercy. At last, everything went still. Finally, it's dead. Riku sat down, catching his breath atop the black hawk's badly mangled corpse, and deactivated the 8 gates. The boost from the 8 gates really is insane, even for a body that's already beyond human limits, he muttered, satisfied. This black hawk's power was off the charts. Faster than most could even see, and its destructive force was insane. Even someone like Riku, who had surpassed the limits of flesh, could barely keep up. But in the end, opening the gate of pain was enough to beat it into submission. Too bad about those demonia corpses, though. This bastard's attacks blew them all to dust. Riku sighed, kicking at the black hawk's body. Those would have been a couple of thousand exchange points at least. Now nothing. Ding. Detected, high-grade demonia. Black hawk corpse. Value, 8,000 exchange points. Recycle? 8,000? This thing's worth more than a dwarf battleship. Riku blinked in surprise, but quickly grinned. It made sense. The Black Hawk's destructive power was something he'd experienced firsthand. While it couldn't match a Flyga like Drumroll, it could absolutely dominate any race outside the top 6. Well, except for Ex Machina, which is a special case. If the Ex Machina teamed up, they could even take down old Deus. Recycle, Riku ordered cheerfully. In a flash, the massive Black Hawk corpse vanished, and Riku was left standing in midair. That's another 10,000 points. Should I buy a couple of exquisite chests? He mused, stroking his chin. No, I'm strong enough for now. Better to save up for a superior chest. Maybe I'll get something really game-changing. He shook his head, giving up on opening any more exquisite chests for now. Time to open that golden chest. Here's hoping for some good luck for once. He eyed the golden chest not far away, its radiant light reflecting in his golden eyes. His luck lately had been trash. Every draw, nothing but junk. In the blink of an eye, he crossed a kilometer and stood before the dazzling golden chest, adorned with gemstones and radiating with brilliance. Now this is luxury. Riku whistled in awe. Without hesitation, he placed his hand on the chest. Click, the golden chest sprang open, flooding the area with golden light so intense it almost blinded him. Ding. Congratulations, you have obtained the World Jump Token. World Jump Token, when activated, allows a user to randomly travel to a world they are familiar with, triggering a special mission. Time flows differently. 1 year in the other world is only a week here. A World Jump Token. If I'm lucky, this could be huge, Riku thought, examining the golden token in his palm. Even though this draw didn't boost his immediate fighting power, he couldn't complain. Whatever. No point worrying. Time to get out of here. I made enough noise. If any of the top 6 races show up, I'll be in trouble. Riku shrugged and prepared to leave. The battlefield, marked by a fresh, gigantic crater, stood as evidence of the ferocious fight that just took place. Not long after Riku departed, a slender figure appeared at the site, Flugel, variant unit, Drumroll. What a massive energy signature. There was an intense fight here. Drumroll scanned the crater with curiosity. And why does the energy here feel so familiar? She pondered for several minutes, unable to piece it together. Forget it. I don't care. I need to get back to hunting those monkeys from the forest. Can't believe they ran off with a grimoire. So petty, she muttered. With that, a ripple ran through the air, and Drumroll's form faded from sight, vanishing into the space between worlds. Chapter 16. Meanwhile, in a lavish room somewhere in the Were-Beast Nation, there was a young Were-Beast girl with red eyes and shoulder-length bluish-purple hair, her small frame almost childlike. Her large, fox-like ears and tail, paired with a beautiful, serious face and a kimono tied with a large ribbon at the waist, gave her a strikingly delicate look. Right now, this seemingly lily princess gazed solemnly toward the place where Riku and the Black Hawk had fought. Such powerful energy. And close by. Those words slipped from her lips as she wondered what might be happening. At that moment, Riku was making his way toward the Were-Beast Nation. This time, he finally didn't run into any trouble along the way, so it only took him 3 or 4 hours to get close to the hidden Were-Beast forest. 1, 2, 5 Were-Beast sentries, huh? Riku's sharpened senses immediately picked out the patrol's positions, and he frowned. If possible, he didn't want to use the Divine Escape Talisman just yet. He'd rather save it for sneaking into the Dragonia or Gigant race's domains, maybe even get a diamond chest. Sure, it was dangerous, but fortune favors the bold. Given his current strength, sneaking into the Were-Beast capital just to get a platinum chest using the talisman seemed like a waste. Oh well, let's try the normal way first. After a moment's thought, Riku disguised himself, wrapping his entire body in a special black cloak that masked his scent. With everything in place, Riku moved out. Even now, he knew that facing an entire race head-on was unrealistic, especially when there was still a hidden powerhouse. The Were-Beast Princess. Lurking among them. Once ready, he set off under the cover of night, soaring high above the ground. Were-Beast's senses were sharp, but at that altitude, dressed in black, he blended in with the night. Ordinary sentries stood no chance of spotting him. Soon, he hovered above the grandest building in the Were-Beast Nation and began his descent. So far, so good. Riku felt relieved. Who's there? A cold, sharp voice suddenly rang out, and Riku stiffened. Boom. Without hesitation, knowing he'd been discovered and that it was probably the Were-Beast Princess herself, Riku blasted down through the air, smashing straight through the palace roof into a brightly lit room. Enemy attack. Protect Her Highness, the princess. Damn it. Which race is this who dares to invade? Alarms blared. The whole Were-Beast palace erupted in chaos as everyone rushed to defend the princess. Who are you? You look human, but no human can fly or wield power like this. The young Were-Beast in the kimono stared him down, her red eyes icy. You must be the Were-Beast princess. Riku's golden eyes narrowed, ignoring her question as he spoke with certainty. I am indeed the princess of the Were-Beasts. My name is Hatsu's Faya. And yours? She replied coldly. Hatsu's Faya. Hatsu's Izuna. Riku's eyes flashed as he studied the girl's features so similar to Hatsu's Izuna, 6,000 years in the future. Could she be her ancestor? And your name? Hatsu's Faya pressed. Just call me Riku, little miss. Riku replied with a sly smile. In the blink of an eye, his body blurred. He charged straight at Faya. But Faya's eyes merely glinted. Though surprised by his speed, she didn't flinch. In fact, Riku swerved at the last second, landing several meters to her right, looking elated. What is your goal? You don't seem to have any hostility toward me, she asked in a steady voice. If I said I'm just here sightseeing, would you believe me? Riku answered absently as he quietly opened the brilliantly glowing platinum chest beside him. The Were-Beast princess didn't attack, which surprised Riku, but he welcomed it. After all, his main goal was just to open the chest. Things were going more smoothly than expected. Are you mocking me? Faya said, her voice turning frosty. Her hair seemed to bristle as an intense aura erupted from her. This pressure far stronger than even the Black Hawk. Chapter 17. How could I possibly be mocking you? Riku didn't even care what he got from the chest. Instead, he temporarily muted the system and kept his eyes fixed on Faya. Faya was easily the strongest opponent he'd faced in days aside from Jibril. There was zero room for carelessness. If he let his guard down, he could get one-shotted. But it looks like getting out of here won't be so easy today. Riku glanced around, voice casual. Princess, are you alright? As Riku's words fell, loud voices erupted as several elite Were-Beasts burst through the doors. Each one radiated an intense aura, clearly among the strongest of the Were-Beast tribe. Beyond the room, hundreds more stood ready, either to support or block Riku's escape. A human? The new arrivals eyed Riku suspiciously, brows furrowed. You really aren't going to escape that easily. I can sense your strength, but leaving here is impossible, Faya said coolly. Why resist? Surrender and come quietly. That's something I can't do. If I want to leave, it's easy, Riku replied with a sudden grin, calm as ever. With that, Riku triggered Skywalk, his lean body bursting with terrifying power, crushing the floor as he shot toward the ceiling. His speed was so great, most Were-Beasts couldn't even see him move. What the? Every Were-Beast's eyes widened. A human unleashing this kind of physical power, stronger than most of their own, was unthinkable. Humphrey. As Riku moved, Faya's gaze sharpened. Her body cutting through the air, rocketing after him faster than even Riku. Boom. A second later, Faya caught up to Riku's altitude. Her small fist shot forward, the punch booming so powerfully it shook the air, sending waves rippling out all around them. Boom. Riku's eyes narrowed. He met her fist head-on, his own hand wrapped in intense spirit energy. Kaboom. A thunderous crash rang out, like a sky-splitting explosion. It was just two fists colliding, but the impact was cataclysmic. Waves of force ripped the air apart, circles of white mist blooming where the pressure shattered the atmosphere. Riku let out a grunt and shot back 100 meters, barely stabilizing himself. Clearly, Faya, the little Were-Beast princess, had won that exchange. Your strength surpasses even the blood destruction of my kin. You've broken past physical limits, but I am not like my ordinary Were-Beast, she said, walking on air as if it was nothing. I noticed, Riku replied with a straight face, glancing at his bruised, swollen fist. He'd eaten one fruit, and his body was this strong. But this princess had a body that was already near the limit, and she'd taken 7 of those fruits. Even if the effect decreased with each one, the results were ridiculous. Right now, even without blood destruction, Faya's base form was 4 or 5 times stronger than a normal Were-Beast using blood destruction. If Riku hadn't shielded his fist with spirit energy, that arm might have been broken or worse. You're strong, but I'm not weak, either. Riku's eyes sharpened. Gate 4, Gate of Pain. Open. He shouted. Instantly, a blue aura flared up around Riku, blasting out a surge of power that stirred the winds. What kind of power is that? It's terrifying. Below, the onlooking Were-Beasts felt a boulder press on their chests. A human breaking the limits was shocking enough. Now he was showing an even more overwhelming force. With strength like this, only their princess could hope to match him. Anyone else was just crowd control. But with this much power, Riku could just fly away if he wanted. No one could chase him. It's fine. Princess Faya's the strongest. She'll defeat the human. Some Were-Beasts tried to reassure themselves, but their instincts screamed danger. Even the elite warriors who could use blood destruction just watched from below, grim-faced at this level. They'd only get in the way. Blood destruction? No. It's similar, but not quite the same. And this energy feels a lot like the disturbance from a few hours ago. Could it be? Faya's red eyes locked onto Riku, her usually cute face turning serious. Huff. While Faya was still thinking, Riku suddenly exploded into action, vanishing from his spot and appearing right in front of her. He launched a punch straight at her, not holding back just because she looked like a little girl. In a fight for your life, winning is all that matters. Boom. Fia's expression changed. At the last moment, she blocked with her arm, but the impact still sent her flying through the sky. But Riku didn't let up. He pressed forward, unleashing a relentless storm of attacks like a raging typhoon. Fia, her face tense, blocked and countered each move, barely keeping up. Up against Riku with the gate of pain open, Fia's regular form was struggling, stuck on the defensive. In an instant, the sky was filled with booming explosions, the shockwaves shaking the clouds and sending pressure down on the were beasts below. They all stared upward, stunned and anxious. The speed was unreal, they could only see after images, unable to tell who was winning. You really are strong. But I haven't used my real power yet. After another fierce exchange, Fia's arms tingled from the impact. She spoke coldly, not backing down. Suddenly, Fia let out a shout. Blood-red energy exploded around her, even her fur turning crimson. Her presence and power surged to a terrifying new level. So this is blood destruction. Riku narrowed his eyes, his face deadly serious. But he didn't flinch. In the next moment, he stomped on the air, zipping straight at Fia again, launching a punch that blew apart everything in front of him. Boom. Fia just raised her hand and caught the blow, her petite body not stepping back an inch. It felt like his hand was caught in a vice. Her claws, empowered by blood destruction, ripped through both spirit energy and flesh, leaving bloody gashes in Riku's right hand. Thwack! Riku's mind raced, and he swung a kick at Fia's head, but she easily blocked it again. A split second later, Fia's tiny fist shot out, slamming into Riku's stomach. Crack! At the last moment, Riku concentrated his energy in his abdomen and took the hit head-on. Even so, his energy barrier cracked audibly, and he was sent flying like a meteor, crashing into the land far from the were beast settlement. Boom! The impact made the ground collapse, forming a crater nearly a kilometer wide. Man, that power's insane. If I hadn't defended, I'd be toast, Riku muttered, lying at the bottom of the pit, feeling his stomach sting. She looked like an adorable were beast girl, but her strength was just plain crazy. Riku, if you surrender, I won't kill you. In fact, I'll make you an honored guest of the were beasts. I'm really interested in your power. Fia's voice boomed overhead, her figure floating at the edge of the crater. Riku's strength was unusual. If she could figure out how it worked, maybe all were beasts could get much stronger. You're pretty confident, aren't you? Riku stood up, brushed the dust off, and replied coolly. Gate 5, Gate of Limit. Open. He roared. Riku's power spiked again, his aura shifting toward blue. He vanished from the crater. Fia's pupil shrank in alarm. Boom. A moment later, Riku appeared right next to her and slammed a punch into her stomach. Gurk. Crack. The blow hit Fia hard. She let out a pained gasp, eyes wide. Her body was sent flying, crashing through a mountain in the distance and snapping it in two. The force was so fierce, she blasted through several more peaks before finally stopping. Mountains crumbled and the earth shook, an epic scene. His power got even stronger. Does this guy have no limits? Fia steadied herself, legs buried in the rubble, clutching her stomach with blood at the corner of her mouth, completely shocked inside. She was hurt. Sure, it was because she let her guard down, but she couldn't deny it. Riku's strength wasn't much less than her own. Chapter 18 Sixth Gate. Gate of View, open. Riku's deep roar echoed, making Fia's eyes narrow. His power just kept growing. How many levels did this guy have? Fia's beastly eyes narrowed, and with a powerful push from her legs, she shot toward Riku like a streak of red lightning. The mountain she used as a launch point crumbled, a huge crater left behind like something had taken a massive bite out of it. Morning Peacock. As Fia closed in, Riku's muscles bulged, veins popping, his fists moving too fast for the eye to see. The air itself combusted under his speed, fists setting the sky ablaze with hundreds of fiery projectiles flying straight at Fia. You may be strong, but there's no way I'll lose. Fia said coldly, eyes on the swarm of fireballs. She sidestepped in midair, breaking the laws of physics, weaving through the barrage. The one she couldn't dodge, she punched apart, explosions of fire lighting up the sky like fireworks. In a blink, Fia was face to face with Riku, her petite hands turning into blurs as she launched her counterattack. Riku fought back, blow for blow. They traded thousands of strikes in seconds, the ground beneath unable to handle the pressure, craters and cracks spiderwebbed for miles, a ruined landscape left in their wake. To the average onlooker, the fight was nothing but a blur of afterimages, deafening explosions, and sudden, massive craters appearing out of nowhere. That was how fast and powerful they were. Ha ha ha. Now this is a fight. Riku suddenly laughed out loud, the excitement in his voice a total change from his usual calm. It had been a long time since Riku got to cut loose like this. Trading blow for blow, This was the kind of fight he dreamed about, even if his opponent was a beast-eared lie, the thrill was real. Humphrey, Fia snorted, refusing to slow down. In her crimson beast eyes, a new look burned, excitement, a wild will to fight. She'd always carried the worries of her people, never allowed to really let loose. This was the first time she'd ever fought at full strength, giving herself completely to the battle. It felt incredible. Too bad their fun was everyone else's nightmare. The monsters caught in the shockwaves were wiped out. Back in the Were-Beast settlement, everyone waited in terror, the sounds of battle thundering from afar. None of them could believe anyone could keep up with their princess's physical power. Their pride had always been in their natural strength, and now a human was fighting their strongest on even footing? Their worldview was shattering. Soon, the sounds of battle quieted, making the whole tribe uneasy. At the leader's signal, dozens of elite Were-Beasts rushed to the site. They found a wasteland of craters and shattered peaks, like the end of the world. Riku and Fia both stood there, battered and breathing hard, but their eyes were still bright with fighting spirit. Enemies or not, a sense of mutual respect had been born between them. Hey, Fia, don't you think this world is crazy? Riku grinned through heavy breaths. This world is insane, Fia replied after a pause. You, me, everyone. All the races here are mad. Ha ha ha, good answer. Want to do something even crazier? Riku laughed. What do you mean? Fia asked, curiosity piqued. I want to end this stupid war game. Knock the gods off their thrones, rule the world, and win the Suniaster, Riku said, his ambition bold and confident. You're insane, Fia replied, stunned. You just said so yourself, Riku shrugged, cool as ever. You can't do it. You're strong, but not even close to a Flugel's level, let alone the gods, Fia said, sounding defeated. Struggling to survive in this chaotic era was exhausting, especially for someone like her, carrying the fate of her race. That's just for now. Just because I can't do it yet, doesn't mean I never will, Riku said, calm but determined. What I want to know is, are your Were-Beasts interested in teaming up with me? Team up? Fia's eyes flashed, her face turning serious. She paused, then said, are you serious? Do you think I'd joke about this? Riku answered just as seriously. You don't have the strength to make me bet my race on you, Fia sighed. Their race's god, who created them, had been killed by the war god Artosh. Hating him was natural, but what could they do? Without their god, they were barely surviving, slightly better off than humans. The same went for the elves. Only the top 6 races were truly strong besides them, only Ex Machina were doing okay, and that was because they'd killed a Dragonia king. No one dared mess with them now. If you want proof, I'll show you some strength, Riku said quietly. Fia, let's settle this with one final move. Fine by me, Fia grinned, her power flaring again, hair burning red as her energy soared. The ground beneath them caved in from the pressure. 7th gate. Gate of Wonder, open. Riku shouted, bearing the pain. The 7th gate, just before the final death gate, pushed his power to new heights. Blue steam burst from his body, the air itself trembling from the energy. Fia saw Riku's state and knew she couldn't wait. She vanished, using every ounce of strength for her final attack, fist blazing toward Riku. But before she could hit, she froze, hair standing on end. In her vision, Riku's fist seemed to fill the world with a shadow of death looming. One hit and she'd die, her head would burst like a melon. But she couldn't dodge, he was just too fast. Boom. But Riku changed direction at the last second, his punch missed her by inches, the shockwave blasting everything in its path. Mountains shattered, debris flying, the sky cleared for miles. I lost. Fia slumped, the blue flames scorching her cheek. Phew, I'm wiped out, Riku sighed, dropping to the ruined ground, releasing the technique and grimacing at the pain. The 7th gate's backlash was brutal, he could barely move. Still, he was in better shape than Might Guy had ever been. Was that your full power? Fia asked, awe in her voice. Not even close. If I went all out, the cost would be too high. I've got tricks I didn't need to use, Riku replied coolly. You've still got trump cards, huh? No shame in losing, then, Fia said, a bitter smile on her face. Let me ask you something else. How long did it take you to get this strong? She pressed. Less than a year, Riku answered, a little vague. Admitting it was just a month would have been too much. Incredible. You really do have unlimited potential, Fia marveled. Alright, I'll go crazy with you. Let's try to end this divine war. Hey, looking forward to working with you, Riku said, offering his hand. Yeah, Fia answered, shaking it and giving him a genuine smile. Let's do this. Chapter 19. Fia's little hand was soft, but Riku kept it professional, letting go right away and flopping onto the ground beside her. What a strange human, Faya thought, glancing at him, then at her own hand before sitting down too. She was just as exhausted as he was. Blood destruction didn't have much backlash, but it still took a lot out of her. Princess. Are you alright? A few minutes later, dozens of werebeasts arrived, looking anxious. But when they saw Faya and Riku sitting peacefully together, they froze, confused as could be. The ruined land and shattered mountains scared them, but this calm, friendly scene made even less sense. Faya, did you win? The leader finally asked, glancing nervously at Riku. All the others looked on, hoping their princess had captured the human. No, I lost completely, Faya said softly. Shock spread across every face. They couldn't believe it. Faya, you really lost? Did this human capture you? The leader pressed, his aura flaring with the signs of blood destruction. The other werebeasts glared at Riku, ready to jump him. Don't get the wrong idea, I lost, but I wasn't captured. We'll talk about it later. Treat Riku-san with respect, Faya explained quickly. The werebeasts glanced at each other, completely lost. Faya, could you prepare some hot water later? I'm feeling a bit grimy, Riku said, giving Faya's blue hair a playful rub. Don't touch my head. It'll stunt my growth. Faya pouted. And your hands are dirty. Relax, don't worry so much, Riku said, grinning and ignoring her protests, still ruffling her hair. Faya puffed up her cheeks, pretending to be mad, but there was a faint blush on her face. She actually kind of liked it. Riku smirked to himself. There really were similarities between Faya and her descendant, Izuna. Izuna liked being patted on the head, too, though she had her own quirks. Seeing their princess let a human pat her on the head was too much for the others. They just stared, dumbfounded. Not long ago, these two had been mortal enemies. Now they were friendly? They couldn't make sense of it. Still, no one spoke up. Riku's power was obvious. If their princess had lost to him, none of them dared pick a fight. Riku-san, please come with us, the old chief finally said, showing some respect. Riku nodded, walking alongside Faya and the others, still patting her head, which made her keep protesting in an adorable way. He couldn't help but smile, her hair really was soft. The rest of the werebeasts just watched, jaws dropped, as their invader walked home with the princess and chief, chatting like old friends. They had no idea what was going on. Later, as Riku and Faya soaked in the hot springs, the others finally worked up the courage to ask the chief what had happened. But his answer was still, I don't know. That left everyone even more confused. But right now, Riku and Faya were both just enjoying a nice, relaxing bath. Chapter 20. The men's and women's hot springs were separated only by a thin bamboo wall, so Riku's words naturally carried over to the side where Faya was bathing. This place was something I stumbled upon by chance, Faya said proudly, soaking her petite body in the water, ears and tail twitching. Since it's so well hidden, I decided to settle the tribe here. It's been years since anyone from another race found us. But how did you know about this place so easily? Faya suddenly asked, tilting her head in confusion. Haha, that's my secret. Let's just say I have some special abilities, Riku answered with a relaxed smile. Humphrey, such a vague answer is so unsatisfying, Faya pouted, her face adorably scrunched up. Her childlike figure and cute demeanor made it hard not to smile. Of course, Riku couldn't see her through the wall, otherwise, he'd probably be tempted to pat her head again. For now, he simply enjoyed the moment. Faya, can I ask you something? Riku looked up at the dark night sky, a faint grin on his lips. What is it you want to ask? Faya replied curiously. How old are you now? Riku asked bluntly. Why do you ask? Faya hesitated for a moment, but finally answered softly, I'm 17 years old. As she spoke, a complicated look flashed through Faya's red eyes. She'd shown incredible talent from a young age, with her physical abilities almost reaching the limits of her race by the time she was 7, and later being able to use blood destruction. Her tribe treated her as their hope for the future and nurtured her at all costs, a heavy burden that had often left her breathless. But after her battle with Riku, she finally felt she'd been able to let loose. 17, huh? So you really are a young werebeast princess, Riku blinked in surprise. Honestly, I thought you'd be older, with the way you talk. Are you looking down on me? Faya bristled, though she didn't really understand Riku's words. No, not at all. Anyone with your strength at 17, no one would dare underestimate you. It's just the way you speak sounds so mature, I figured you must be older. I've read a lot of books. And this way of speaking seemed more dignified, Faya admitted, face reddening a bit. She sounded a little embarrassed. But habits are hard to break, and she'd gotten used to it. Is it that strange? She asked hesitantly. Haha, not at all. Honestly, it suits you. Riku chuckled. It's kind of a charm point, you shouldn't change it. You're a strange person, Riku, Faya said, shaking her head. Maybe so. Riku gazed at the blood-red sky, feeling oddly relaxed. How long had it been since he could just unwind like this? Maybe it was being in a fantasy world after all. Real life had always felt like a bad game. Anyway, enjoy your bath. I need to go discuss our alliance with the others, Faya said, climbing out of the hot spring and drying off before heading back to the palace. Sure, Riku replied, simply nodding. Faya changed into a clean kimono and entered the council room, where the Were Beast leaders were already gathered. Faya, you're here, the old chief greeted her with a smile. The others nodded as well. Faya took the seat at the head of the table. So, is that human really so strong? Strong enough that you'd admit defeat? The chief asked seriously, and everyone looked at Faya expectantly. Yes, he's very strong. If he'd chosen to attack our tribe directly, we would have been wiped out. All of us, including me, would be dead. Riku would probably have only been injured, Faya replied earnestly, scanning the faces of her kin. A collective gasp ran through the room. They'd witnessed the fight above the village, but only heard the distant sounds of the real battle. They knew Riku was powerful, but hadn't realized just how overwhelming his strength was. Chapter 21 Then why is that human so close to Faya? The chief of the Were Beast tribe fell silent for a moment, then finally voiced his biggest doubt. Yeah, could the princess please explain this to us? All the senior Were Beasts turned serious, looking to Faya for answers. Enemies becoming close friends overnight? It was too strange to ignore. To be honest, I've already decided to join forces with him, Faya said quietly, but seriously. To end this crazy world together. I'm tired of running, always on guard against other races or forced to hunt them just to survive. I've had enough. What? Princess, you can't be serious. He's a human. He's not to be trusted. And among humans, he's clearly an outlier. This concerns the very survival of our tribe, Princess. You can't make this decision on your own. The elders exploded, slapping the table and leaping up, voices raised in protest. Those who are not of our kind must have different hearts in this world, that saying was the law. If he wanted to wipe us out, he would have already done it, Faya countered, her hair lifting in a windless gust as her aura pressed the elders back into their seats. He found our hidden home, and we're all still alive. That made the elders fall silent, realizing she had a point. Riku has unlimited potential, Faya went on, eyes distant but firm. A year ago, he was an ordinary human. Now he's stronger than me, stronger than even a Fleagle. If we become his first allies, we'll be giving help when it matters most. If we back him to win the seat of the one true god, our tribe will flourish. A year ago. That's insane. The elders looked at each other, astonished. Was his potential really that terrifying? Could someone like that actually defeat the fabled god of war someday? What Faya says makes sense. But how can we know he really trusts us and isn't just planning to use us, then cast us aside? The chief looked much more relaxed, but was still cautious. The others nodded. That was the key. I've only known him for a day, but I trust him, Faya said urgently, growing anxious. My instincts tell me I'm not wrong about him. But instinct alone wasn't enough to sway the council. No matter how strong she was, Faya couldn't make this kind of alliance on her own. Faya, something like this isn't a game. Instinct isn't enough, the chief said with a wry smile. How about we observe him for a while first? Suggested another elder. No, that would only make him suspicious, Faya said. An alliance only works if there's no doubt, and besides, I already promised him. If we go back on that, the consequences could be disastrous. The room grew tense and quiet, everyone weighing the risks and rewards. Hurry up and decide. Riku will be expecting an answer after his bath, Faya urged, looking genuinely eager. Deep down, she admired Riku and wanted to stand alongside him to end this mad world. Not just for her tribe, but maybe for herself too. Actually, if we're going to form an alliance, I have the perfect solution, the chief said, finally raising his head and looking around, fixing his gaze on Faya. Chief, what is it? Tell us already. Yeah, no more suspense. The elders were impatient now, all eyes on the chief. Grandpa, please tell us if it's something I can do, and if it means we can ally with Riku, I'll do it. Faya said, not quite understanding, but desperate to persuade them. No hesitation at all, huh? The chief smiled. The method is simple, really. He smiled mysteriously and began to outline his perfect plan. So what is it? The chief paused on purpose, not saying it right away. Everyone stared at him expectantly. Faya even looked like she might yank out his beard if he waited any longer. The solution is for Faya and Riku to get married. The chief's grin widened as he spoke. If Faya and Riku become husband and wife, then the risk of our tribe being abandoned drops to almost zero. In fact, it puts us in an even better position. At that, Faya completely froze, her pretty face turning bright red, her crimson eyes glued to the scheming old chief. Wow, that's actually a smart idea. Chief, you're right. The only problem is, will Riku even like Faya? Stop calling him that human, he's Riku's sama now. And come on, Faya's got talent, power, and she's cute. What guy could resist? But wait, there's never been a marriage between different races. Could that cause trouble? Doesn't matter. Just because it's never happened doesn't mean it can't. Honestly, their talents and strength are a perfect match. In an instant, the meeting room erupted into cheerful chatter. These usually serious elders suddenly turned into gossipy matchmakers, all talking at once. The chief just stroked his white beard, smiling like he'd solved everything. Sure, this was basically a political marriage, but since Faya seemed to trust Riku, he didn't think she'd be unhappy. Chief Grandpa, what are you even saying? Faya snapped, her face burning, storming over to grab his beard. Ow, ow. Please, my dear, let go of my beard. The chief winced and laughed. It's a little crazy, but this really is the best plan. But Faya was totally flustered. She really did respect and like Riku, but marriage? That was way too fast. And she was only 17. How could these old geezers just sell her off like this? You already like him, right? It could work out well. There's not much difference between our species, anyway. And it's for the good of the tribe, the chief said, trying to reassure her. Fine, I'll try, Faya said at last, after a few minutes of blushing, tail flicking, and hesitating. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Ordinary people wouldn't have heard it, but were beasts had sharp ears, so everyone caught it. At once, all the elders grinned from ear to ear. With Faya on board, why would they object? Humphrey. Faya turned her head away in a huff, sulking. I'll definitely pull out all your beards someday, you old fools. Meanwhile, Riku had finished his bath and was walking out in a crisp new kimono, provided by the tribe's maids. He could have used his transformation ability to change clothes, but figured it was better to fit in here. The bath had helped relieve the strain from using 8 gates. Plus, now that he'd secured an alliance with the Were-beasts, he was in a pretty good mood. Lord Riku, please come with me, one of the maids said politely, curiosity in her eyes. A human being treated so carefully by the princess and elders, no matter how strong he was unheard of. The whole tribe was dying of curiosity about him. All right, Riku said, smirking slightly as he followed. Clearly, the negotiations between Faya and the elders had ended. The maid wouldn't be so polite if they'd said no. I wonder how Faya convinced them. It shouldn't have been easy. I figured they'd drag this out for days, but it's already settled, Riku thought, glancing around as he walked. Riku-sama, the princess and the elders are waiting for you inside. I'll take my leave, the maid said as they arrived at a fancy doorway. Riku nodded and pushed open the door. Inside was a large table, with a bunch of middle-aged and older Were-beasts in the tribal council. At the head, in 2 ornate chairs, Faya sat in her kimono, while the seat to her right was empty. This is a serious setup. Not quite what I expected. Riku scanned the table and the faces of the tribal elders, most of whom were smiling. But what stood out most was Faya, cheeks bright red, her expression caught between embarrassed and annoyed. He'd honestly thought they'd be cold toward him, maybe even try to intimidate him a little. This felt way too friendly. Welcome, Riku-sama. The chief came over, beaming, and guided Riku to the seat of honor, right next to Faya. Please, you're our honored guest, sit here. Yes, welcome. All the other elders stood up and greeted him warmly, practically showering him with respect. This strange vibe made Riku even more suspicious. Once he'd sat beside Faya, it finally clicked, only those with the highest status got these seats, and guests never got the place of honor, especially not at the chief's right hand. Do Were-beasts have the same customs about seating? Still, this is weird. Since you and Faya have been sparring for so long, you must be hungry. We prepared a special meal for you, the chief said with a broad smile. Thank you, chief. Riku smiled back, figuring there was no harm in accepting the hospitality. He could sense no malice, just genuine friendliness. Soon, they started eating. Riku didn't bother to worry about poison, he just dug right in, unfazed. The elders were quietly impressed by his confidence. Every so often, Riku would glance at Faya as if to say, "What's going on here?" But she just blushed even more, avoided his eyes, and kept eating quietly. After the meal, Riku's mood turned serious. I assume the chief and elders know about my alliance with Faya. Have you made a decision? Yes, we have, the chief replied, all smiles, nodding as the other elders looked on in silence. After some discussion, we, the Were-beast tribe, are willing to become your loyal allies. Oh? Riku didn't smile, just watched and waited for the catch. There is one condition, Riku-sama. The chief's tone was still friendly, but his eyes were sharp. What is it? Riku asked, unbothered. Meanwhile, Faya's face had gone completely red, her ears and tail twitching. It's simple, really. We all hope you marry Faya. That way, our alliance will be unbreakable. The chief beamed, stroking his beard. Huh? Even Riku, usually unflappable, was stunned, staring at the sly old chief in disbelief. He'd expected some kind of trick, but this was beyond what he'd imagined, a full-on political marriage, with Faya as the prize. Riku glanced at Faya, who couldn't meet his eyes, blushing so hard there was practically steam coming from her head. Well, that's a hell of a move. I guess this is how they want to tie the alliance together. So, Riku-sama, what do you think? The chief asked, still all smiles. I'm not opposed. But I want to be sure Faya's serious about this. Riku pressed his fingers to his forehead, glancing at Faya. The elders all turned to her, waiting for her answer. Faya, taking a deep breath, managed to whisper, I am serious. That soft answer, the way she was blushing, her tail flicking back and forth. Riku had to admit, she was really cute. Alright, then. Let's do it, he said with a small smile. Not only did he get the tribe's strength on his side, but he also ended up with a Were-Beast princess for a wife. Who'd say no to that? Wonderful. From now on, the Were-Beasts and humans will be the closest of allies, the chief declared happily, as the elders cheered. Faya just squeezed the edge of her kimono, cheeks flushed, her eyes a mix of shyness and happiness. Looking forward to working together, Faya, Riku said, reaching out to shake her hand. Faya's hand trembled as she took his, heart pounding in her chest. This time, she didn't pull away when Riku patted her head. She just closed her eyes and enjoyed it, her ears and tail twitching with pleasure. If you're getting married, have you set a date? How about tomorrow? The chief suggested. I imagine you have a lot to do, Riku-sama. Better not wait. I agree. Me too. The elders all chimed in. That soon? Well, alright, Riku said after a moment's hesitation. He did have a lot on his plate. Then it's decided. Tomorrow, we'll hold the wedding of Princess Faya and Lord Riku. The room was filled with laughter and chatter. An hour later, everyone dispersed, and a maid led Riku to his guest room. Even then, he slept easily, just leaving a bit of his mind alert for trouble. He really was exhausted. Faya, meanwhile, couldn't sleep at all. She huddled under her blanket, lost in thought, occasionally letting out a small, embarrassed squeak. The next morning, the entire Were-Beast village was buzzing. The news that their princess was marrying a human had everyone in an uproar. Some angry, some jealous, some just curious. But in the end, no one dared protest. The decision had been made by Faya, the chief, and the elders. Anyone causing trouble would be punished, and once the reasons were explained, people settled down, mostly just grumbling out of jealousy. Dressed in red, looking sharp, Riku rode calmly down the road, the wedding procession following behind. Even among the Were-Beasts, weddings were never this big. Usually, even the elders' ceremonies were much simpler. But this was a special occasion, and everyone wanted to see. Riku enjoyed the attention, smiling as he looked over the crowds. At the palace, the wedding ceremony began, witnessed by the chief and all the elders. Everything went perfectly, no surprises. With most of the formalities done, it was time for the wedding night. Riku took Faya, dressed in a white bridal kimono, face flushed, tail wagging with happiness, by the hand, ready to go to their room. Both of them felt a mix of excitement and nerves. This was a big day. Riku was still debating what to do. Was it right to take things further? Would that be too much? Riku-sama, don't overthink it. The wedding night is a tradition for us, Were-Beasts. Don't break the custom. The chief whispered, grinning, as he passed by Riku. Riku couldn't help but freeze up, feeling a bit awkward. This old man really was pushing things. Of course, Faya heard too, her face turning even redder, her body trembling with embarrassment as she glared at the chief. Ahem. Don't worry, our bodies are tough, and Faya's the strongest of us all. Just go for it. With that, the chief scurried away, afraid Faya might really lose her temper. That old guy. Riku couldn't help but smile wryly, guessing the chief just wanted the alliance cemented as soon as possible. Still, it completely ignored how Faya might feel about it. Am I really that kind of guy? Riku wondered. In my world, this would be illegal for sure. Faya just huffed, determined to get her revenge on the chief once the wedding was over. Let's go, Riku said quietly, leading Faya to their room. Faya nodded, keeping her head down, her tail wagging shyly behind her. The other Were-Beasts just watched, cheering them on. Soon, Riku and Faya slipped into their wedding chamber, closing the door behind them, leaving the others to celebrate outside. Do your best, Faya. The tribe's future depends on you. The chief and elders all watched the door, sighing, but also smiling. They felt a little bad for pushing her, but believed it was for the good of everyone. After the wedding ceremony, the village was buzzing with excitement. The werebeasts celebrated with food, drinks, and laughter, something they hadn't enjoyed in a long time. Riku and Faya stood side by side, accepting congratulations and well wishes from elders and friends. Even those who'd once been skeptical now smiled and cheered for the new couple. Congratulations, Riku-sama. Princess Faya. May your union bring peace to our tribe. As the sun set and the celebration continued, Riku felt a strange mix of pride and nervousness. This alliance was more than just politics, now it was becoming real. Soon, the elders gathered around, gently nudging the couple toward their room with knowing smiles. Time to enjoy the wedding night. Don't be shy now. Faya's cheeks turned red as she clung to Riku's sleeve, both of them feeling the pressure, and the teasing, of their well-meaning elders. With everyone watching, Riku and Faya finally entered their room and closed the door, leaving the noise and excitement behind. Their new life together was just beginning. Hearing the chief's advice outside the door, Riku couldn't help but pause awkwardly. This old man is really something else. The chief, having delivered his pep talk, slinked away before Faya could retaliate. Faya, the tribe's strongest, of course, heard everything. Her face, hidden beneath the veil, went from pink to deep red. She trembled, glaring at the closed door where the chief had just vanished. Don't mind him, Riku said softly, squeezing her hand. Faya huffed, cheeks puffed out in annoyance, but her eyes still sparkled with happiness. Your tribe really has some unique customs, Riku joked gently, trying to lighten the mood. Faya nodded, still blushing but not angry. Sitting together at the edge of the bed, there was a long, slightly awkward silence. Riku looked at Faya, her delicate face half hidden by her hair, her ears twitching with nerves. If you're not comfortable, really, it's fine, you don't need to care about those stupid traditions, Riku said sincerely. We can just rest. No pressure, okay? Faya hesitated, then shook her head. It's not that. I want this. I want to be with you tonight, and from now on. Despite her embarrassment, her eyes met his, determination shining through. All right, Riku smiled softly. We'll go at your pace. They leaned into each other, the world outside fading away. The details belonged only to them, a night of gentle laughter, soft words, and a new bond formed. As the sun began to rise, Riku held Faya close, both of them finally relaxing after everything that had happened. Life can be unpredictable, he thought, watching the light slip through the window. Who would have thought a trip for a treasure chest would lead to this? An alliance, a wife, and a future that suddenly feels a little less lonely. With Faya sleeping peacefully beside him, Riku allowed himself a rare, contented smile and drifted off into dreams of what came next. Chapter 22. But last night went on way too long. I'm so tired, Riku mumbled, running his fingers through Faya's hair. Because both of them relied on their physical abilities, it was like they didn't know the meaning of fatigue. The battle lasted until morning. In the end, he almost lost his pride as a man. In her base state, Faya's body was still 4 or 5 times stronger than his. To maintain his dignity, Riku had to activate the 8 gates, opening the 3rd gate just to barely win against Faya. Of course, he didn't open the 4th gate, since from that point on, it would start to really drain his stamina. The 3rd gate, the gate of life, he could handle without side effects. Not that Faya didn't consider using blood destruction, she was definitely competitive. But Riku convinced her otherwise. This wasn't a fight, it was supposed to be fun. Using blood destruction would just wreck the room. Honestly, if she'd used blood destruction, I'd have needed the 4th gate or higher just to keep up. I would have been wiped out, he thought. Still, it gave Riku a sense of urgency. I might have gotten away with it this time, but there's no way I'll pull it off twice. I seriously need to boost my physical strength again. My adorable wife is a beast in more ways than one. He also had to admit, the crafty old werebeast chief seemed to have predicted all this. He'd prepared a ridiculously sturdy bed for them. After all the chaos, it still hadn't collapsed. Anyway, I still haven't checked what I got from that platinum chest, Riku realized, suddenly a little embarrassed. He'd gotten so caught up in other things, he'd forgotten the main reason he came to the werebeast village in the first place. System, what did I get from the platinum chest? Riku asked silently, hugging Faya closer and shifting to get comfortable. Congratulations. Platinum chest opened, you have obtained the life and death creation pill, the life and death creation pill. From the Xianxia worlds. It could bring someone who had just died back to life, and completely heal even the gravest wounds of the living. If you were lucky, it could even break your limits and give you a huge power boost. The system was apparently just repeating the message it had given yesterday. No way. That's insanely overpowered. It's basically another extra life. Riku thought, eyes blazing with excitement. He didn't know exactly how the system ranked platinum chests, but judging from how rare and useful the gold ones were, this must be the best of the best. System, if I use the 8 gate, can I recover completely with this pill? He asked, eyes burning with hope. Affirmative. Even more severe injuries can be healed. However, warning, if your soul is destroyed, the pill can only heal your body, not restore your soul. That's fine. I knew as much. Still, that's incredibly strong, Riku whispered to himself. He'd only ever consider using the 8 gate as an absolute last resort. But with the life and death creation pill, he now had one more trump card, one more shot at survival. Riku was confident that, if he used the 8 gate, he might not be able to defeat the war god, but he definitely wouldn't be taken down instantly. The war god could destroy a planet. Might Guy couldn't, so the gap was huge. But Riku wasn't Guy, and with his own enhancements, his increase in power might be even greater. And he was only just getting started. Alright, everything's taken care of. Time to sleep, he decided, tucking the life and death creation pill into his system storage. He nuzzled closer to Faya, resting his head against hers, his breath tickling her red cheeks. Sensing something in her sleep, Faya pouted and mumbled quietly. Riku just smiled, kissed her gently, and closed his eyes. Soon, the only sounds left in the room were their soft, steady breaths. It wasn't until dusk that the two of them finally woke up. During the wild night, neither of them cared, but now that they were awake, Faya suddenly grew embarrassed. She pulled the blanket up to cover herself. Chapter 23. After graduating from being a great magician, Riku's temperament had changed quite a lot. Riku, you can use magic too? However, Riku's transformation stunned Faya, who was quietly getting dressed on the side. She asked curiously. When Riku fought her, it was always a head-on contest of strength and speed. Now he could even use magic clearly. Riku still had a lot left to show. What do you mean, Riku? Privately, you should call me husband. Riku raised his eyebrows, deliberately acting with authority. Humphrey. Hearing this, Faya pouted, snorted with some dear attitude, but in the end, her face reddened, and she softly said, "Stupid husband." Don't add stupid before it, Riku said with a helpless smile. Well, I can use magic. But rather than magic, it should be called a little gadget. Riku explained slowly. But halfway through the explanation, Riku suddenly realized that after getting married, he hadn't given her any gift. Even the rings were prepared by those Were-Beast chiefs and elders, which made Riku feel a little embarrassed, so he hurriedly added, "Faya, if you want, I can give this to you. You should keep it for yourself, husband. I'm not like you, always out and about." Faya shook her head gently, understandingly. "Sorry, I'll make it up to you with the best gift in the future." Riku touched his face and said seriously. "Alright, I'll remember it. Let's talk about this later. Doesn't husband have something important to discuss with the chiefs and elders?" Upon hearing this, Faya's tail wagged rapidly, her red eyes shining, looking very happy. "Let's go out." Hearing this, Riku also became serious. A moment later, Riku held Faya's small hand and left the bridal chamber, telling a Were-Beast maid waiting outside to go notify the Were-Beast chief and elders. Then the two of them headed toward the conference room. Along the way, all the Were-Beasts they met sincerely congratulated Riku and Faya. No matter what their attitudes had been before, now that everything had been settled, the vast majority of Were-Beasts only had sincere blessings. After all, this was the day of their princess's wedding. A short while later, the dusty Were-Beast chief and elders arrived at the conference room and sat down. Riku and Faya took the main seats. Hee, Riku-sama, did you have a good time last night? Faya didn't neglect you, did she? As soon as he sat down, the chief asked with a wide grin. Hearing this, Riku touched his nose and nodded. "Stupid old man. Shut up already." Faya shouted in embarrassment and anger, her face red. She was really dissatisfied with this old man who had sold her off. I'll shut up, I'll shut up." The Were-Beast chief didn't look angry, just nodded happily, looking very pleased. The other Were-Beast elders also looked relieved. "I wonder, Riku-sama, what did you call us here for this time?" Then the Were-Beast chief and elders became serious and asked one after another. "I'll be leaving soon to seek opportunities to become stronger." Riku nodded and spoke slowly. As soon as he said this, the atmosphere suddenly became quiet, and Faya's body also stiffened. She pressed her lips together. Although she had already prepared herself mentally, it still came too soon. Riku-sama, won't you stay for a few more days?" The Werebeast chief hesitated, then finally asked. Don't be so tense. Riku reached out and patted Faya's head gently. I have spatial abilities. If I want to come back, it's very easy. Spatial abilities. Upon hearing this, everyone gasped, looking at Riku in shock. In this world, the ones most skilled in spatial abilities are the Fleugel. That's why the Fleugel are extremely troublesome. Not only are they strong, but in terms of chasing or escaping, no race can match them. They never expected that Riku, besides being strong, even had spatial abilities. Riku, you never tell me anything. Faya looked up, pouting. Although she looked displeased, if you looked closely, you could see the joy and happiness in her eyes. And if you looked at her rapidly wagging tail, it was even more obvious. This time, I gathered you all here because I want you to do something. Riku nodded, not explaining further about his spatial abilities, and spoke very seriously. What is it? Please tell us, Riku-sama. If it's something we can do, we'll do our best. Upon hearing this, the Werebeast chief also became serious and replied solemnly. I know the general locations of other races' strongholds, so I want to scout out enemy information. I'd like you to form an elite team to gather detailed intelligence. Riku looked around at everyone and said in a deep voice. What? Hearing this, all the Werebeasts gasped, their faces showing extreme shock. The locations of a race's strongholds are extremely important. If a stronghold is found, it could be wiped out, which is extremely dangerous. That's why many races hide their bases very well. Now, someone was telling them he knew the general locations of all the races. This news was too shocking. Chapter 24. In this world, aside from power, intelligence was also extremely important. Riku's words caused a storm in the hearts of all the Werebeasts present, including Faya. Riku, are you serious? Faya was the first to recover and asked in shock. Riku-sama, you aren't joking, are you? The Werebeast chief also asked, unable to believe it. Do you think I would joke about something like this? Riku replied calmly. I trust Riku, Faya answered without hesitation. Ah, I suddenly understand how you were able to find us so accurately. The chief said with a wry smile. Afterwards, every Werebeast's heart began to burn with excitement. Sure enough, forming an alliance through marriage was the right choice. With this kind of astonishing intelligence, their odds of winning had greatly increased. Even if they couldn't win right away, their chances of surviving had risen a lot. In that case, let's continue the meeting. Riku looked around at everyone and spoke slowly. When they heard this, everyone suppressed their excitement and listened quietly. Although I know the general information about all the races, it's unrealistic to investigate all of them at once. We'll need to go one by one. Riku knocked on the table and said steadily. You're right, Lord Riku. Then, which race should we target first? The chief mused. Riku, I suggest that we try to obtain intelligence on the elves. If we can get information on the elves and then find a way to conquer them, it would be extremely beneficial to our alliance. The elves' magic would be very useful to us. Faya said seriously. Hee, Faya's suggestion isn't bad. Riku praised, patting Faya's head as a reward. Being praised and receiving a head pat, Faya couldn't help but narrow her eyes, showing a cute expression like a small animal, looking very pleased. Seeing this, the Werebeast elders exchanged smiles. It was really wonderful that they could get along so well. In addition to the elves, there's another target, the dwarves. The dwarves' technology is also extremely valuable. The other races don't matter, but these two must be drawn into the alliance. Riku tapped the table, his tone turning serious. The dwarves. I see, I understand. The chief and the elders exchanged glances and nodded. As for the dwarves, please rest assured, Riku-sama. We have ways to evade the dwarves' surveillance. The chief stroked his beard and said with confidence. Among all the races, the dwarves' high-tech surveillance methods were the most troublesome. Public enemy number one, so the Werebeasts naturally had their own countermeasures. That's good. Riku wasn't surprised by this answer and nodded. Bring the map. Riku instructed. At this, one of the Werebeast elders carefully took out the map. Riku had asked the maids to remind them to bring it when they were notified. At the time, they were confused about why, but now they understood and were extremely cautious. This map is from long ago. There might be some mistakes now. The chief said, a bit embarrassed. There was nothing they could do on this planet. Battles happened all the time, the terrain changed constantly, and it was just too hard to get up-to-date intelligence. No problem, I'll just update it. Hearing this, Riku shook his head calmly and picked up a pen. Then, he opened the system map as well. However, as soon as he opened the map, Riku's expression froze slightly, and he frowned. Riku, what's wrong? Noticing Riku's strange expression, Faya gently tugged his sleeve and asked in confusion. It's nothing, I just realized something and need to change the plan a bit. The corners of Riku's mouth lifted, revealing a hint of excitement. Change the plan? When they heard this, Fi and the others all looked confused. The elves' capital should have been destroyed by the Fleagle. They're now in a state of flight. You all send people to search for them, and if you find their leaders or important figures, track them. Riku narrowed his eyes and spoke slowly. That's right, when he opened the map earlier, the red dot for the elves' capital had already disappeared. This could only mean one thing: the elves' capital had been wiped out, and so it disappeared from the map. There were many who could have done this, but Riku had a faint feeling that it was Drumroll. He didn't expect that because of his arrival, a butterfly effect was created, causing this event to happen early. Although he was annoyed before about how Drumroll made things so difficult for him, he never expected this battle-crazed girl would accidentally help him so much. Whether it was fighting the elves or obtaining a platinum-level treasure chest, the difficulty had dropped to the absolute minimum. The elves' capital was destroyed by the Fleagle? Faya was shocked, her face filled with disbelief. The other werebeasts were the same. A race stronger than them had been wiped out just like that. For a while, the chief and elders of the werebeasts felt a kind of when the rabbit dies, the fox grieves. Although the two races didn't get along, seeing a great race wiped out so easily was truly a cruel reality. Chapter 25. Thinking about this, the werebeast chief and the elders all looked at Riku with eyes full of relief and gratitude. Their own stronghold had also been discovered, but Riku hadn't used any extreme methods to wipe them out. If the Fleagle could destroy the elves, then Riku, whom Faya said was even stronger than the Fleagle, could certainly do the same. At the same time, they also felt very fortunate that they had Faya, this princess, who could unite with Riku. Otherwise, even if they allied, the chance of being used as pawns would have been much higher. For a moment, the high-ranking werebeasts were lost in their own thoughts, and their loyalty toward Riku grew even deeper. Riku-sama, please rest assured. Leave this matter to us. The werebeast chief and the elders exchanged glances, then spoke with determination. No, I am entrusting this matter entirely to Faya. Riku said, calm and confident. I understand. I guarantee the mission will be completed. Faya responded enthusiastically. She was truly happy to be able to help Riku, because this was a sign of his trust. She wasn't just a pretty face for display. Good, that's fine. As for the dwarves, you can discuss among yourselves. Riku patted Faya's head and gently pinched her ear as he spoke. He had seriously thought this through. The elves were now on the run. If Drumroll or another powerful figure were chasing these elves, then the only outcome for the werebeasts would be instant annihilation. But if it was Faya, even if she met a Fleagle and couldn't win, she absolutely wouldn't be defeated in a short time, and if Riku wanted to rescue her, it would be simple. Faya didn't know Riku's thoughts. She was simply sitting close beside Riku's knee, squirming shyly, her face bright red. Her ears were one of her weak spots. After that, Riku marked the approximate locations of the dwarves and elves' strongholds on the map. He also marked the positions of other races. Among them, the areas of the Dragonia, Gigant, Fleagle, and the Demonulord were especially highlighted, with a warning not to approach within 1,000 kilometers of those were extremely dangerous zones. The werebeasts understood all this well and nodded with serious expressions. An hour later, the meeting ended. Riku left the spatial coordinate on Faya's wedding ring, and on important items for other high-ranking werebeasts. Then, he said his goodbyes and left. Now is not the time for romance. Husband, I will definitely accomplish the task you entrusted to me. Watching the place where Riku had left, Faya stroked her wedding ring and whispered, her face flushed. On the other side, after leaving the werebeast settlement, Riku thought for a moment, and finally decided to return to the human settlement first. He had already been gone for more than half a month. If he wandered outside any longer, Gur and the people of the settlement would really think something had happened to him. After all, he was their pillar. He had to go back and reassure everyone. Once he decided, Riku used Shambhala to teleport to the spatial coordinate he had marked, not far from the human settlement. If it had been when he had just set out, Riku wouldn't have dared to do this. Back then, such long-distance teleportation would have consumed a huge amount of energy. If he were still an ordinary person, transferring like this would have left him completely drained. But now, it didn't matter. A moment later, Riku took out the telescope, changed back into the clothes he had worn when he left, and walked toward the human settlement. The entrance to the human settlement was at the foot of a steep rocky mountain, hidden in a cave. From the outside, it just looked like a wild animal's den. Walking through the tunnel, Riku pondered whether he should move the humans to the werebeast's side. Maybe that would make them a bit safer. But after thinking it over, he decided against it. If possible, it would be better to first try to increase the strength of the humans, only then would it be truly safe. Arriving at the door, Riku knocked on it in a certain rhythm. Before long, The door creaked open from the inside, and a boy in a fur coat peeked out. "Riku, welcome back, you've worked hard." When the boy saw it was Riku outside, his face instantly lit up with joy as he spoke excitedly. For more than half a month, Riku's fate had been unknown, and everyone had been worried sick. Now, seeing him return safely, they were, of course, overjoyed. Riku nodded at the boy and walked inside. The boy followed closely behind, looking left and right, as if he wanted to ask something but ended up saying nothing. After passing through the dim tunnel, the space suddenly opened up. "Everyone, Riku is back." Reaching the open, well-lit area, the boy shouted in delight. "The chief is back." "That's great. The chief is safe." In an instant, all the people working put down what they were doing and gathered around excitedly. Seeing this, Riku felt a bit touched. After all, people cared about him so much now. In times of such danger, these people were nothing like the schemers in movies. Everyone was united, and some would even risk their lives for Riku without hesitation. That was especially precious. Perhaps that was one of the reasons Riku was willing to protect them. Chapter 26. As Riku greeted each of his companions, he noticed Kura running over, her face full of joy. Seeing this, he couldn't help but smile. "Riku, I'm so glad you're safe." Kura squeezed through the crowd and hugged Riku tightly, her eyes shining with tears as she spoke excitedly. Trust was one thing, but how could she not be worried? After all, humans were fragile. If one acted alone, even encountering the lowest class demonic creature would be fatal. "I'm fine, see? By the way, I brought the telescope." Riku patted Kura's back and spoke gently. Hearing this, Kura let go of Riku and admired the item in his hand with delight. With this thing, humans would be much safer. They could now be warned ahead of time. The others were also delighted at the sight of the telescope. As long as they could adapt it so it didn't require elven magic to operate, they wouldn't need to live in constant fear anymore. As long as they could spot other races from a distance and plan accordingly, everything would be fine. "Kura, I have something important to talk to you about. Come with me." After scanning everyone's faces, Riku shook his head slightly and finally looked at Kura, speaking seriously. "All right." Hearing this, Kura was stunned for a moment, but then nodded seriously. Afterwards, the two of them walked side by side toward Riku's room. The others watched with teasing, knowing looks. "Riku, did you discover anything else important while you were out?" Once they entered the room, Kura asked immediately. Riku looked Kura in the eyes, nodded, and then said slowly, "While I was out, for certain reasons, I became stronger." As he spoke, Riku picked up a small knife from the table and snapped it in half with his hand. Seeing this, Kura froze. That kind of strength was only possible for other races. How could a human break a blade with their bare hands? Quickly, Kura grabbed Riku's hand, checked it for any injuries, and when she saw there was none, her face changed, showing shock and confusion. If she hadn't known Riku for so long and hadn't been familiar with everything about him, she might have thought he'd been replaced by someone from another race. "Just how strong are you now, Riku?" After a few minutes of silence, Kura finally managed to hold back the urge to ask what had happened to Riku and instead asked, "Is it possible for other humans to become stronger too?" "Probably a bit stronger than a Fleagle." Riku thought for a while and finally answered. "As for the others, I haven't helped anyone else become stronger yet." "I see. Riku, I can't believe you've become so strong." "That's really great," Kura said, a little disappointed but still genuinely happy. "Actually, there's something else I want to talk to you about." Riku touched his face, hesitated, but finally spoke up. Whether it was about his strength or other matters, these things couldn't be hidden. It was better to say them sooner, to give Kura and the rest of humanity some mental preparation. "What is it?" Kura asked curiously. "Actually, I got married," Riku said with an apologetic smile. "What?" Upon hearing this, Kura froze, blurting out in surprise. "Married? To whom?" Kura asked anxiously, feeling a little down. "To Faya, the Werebeast princess," Riku said slowly. "Werebeast princess?" Kura was stunned, muttering to herself, her face full of disbelief. She had thought Riku might have married someone from another human tribe, but never imagined it would be a Werebeast. A human marrying a Werebeast, there was simply no precedent for such a thing. "No wonder you smell like a woman." "I see. I just didn't expect it to be the Werebeast princess. This really confuses me." Kura held her forehead, her face complicated. Hearing this, Riku was a little embarrassed. He had bathed after sleeping with Faya, but Kura still noticed. "Don't underestimate a woman's sense of smell and intuition, idiot." Kura glared at Riku, annoyed. Sorry. Part of it is that I like Faya, but the other reason is to form an alliance with the Werebeasts." Riku explained awkwardly. Forming an alliance with the Werebeasts? They actually agreed? And married off their princess to you? That's not like the Werebeasts at all. Kura frowned. Other races always considered themselves superior, why would they care about humans? I beat Faya, so they accepted it. Besides, for the future of both races, Faya has staked the Werebeasts on me. So in this alliance, I'm in the dominant position. Riku explained seriously. In that case, I suddenly want to meet my new sister-in-law. Hearing this, Kura was silent for a moment, then smiled. She really has good taste, able to see your potential and charm at a glance. But even though Kura was smiling, in reality, her eyes were a mix of bitterness, happiness, and relief. Kura, I'll fulfill the promise I made before I left, so don't overthink it. Riku naturally noticed Kura's feelings, so he declared his scumbag statement right away. Chapter 27 Riku, are you openly declaring that you're going to build a harem? Kura was stunned by Riku's words. Then, with a half smile, she stared at him and snorted. That's basically a scumbag declaration, you know. Still, even though Kura said this, her mood seemed to improve. Clearly, Riku remembering his promise to marry her pleased her very much. I'm at least self-aware. But, well, I think that if you just give up on girls you genuinely like because of all this, that's being a coward. Saying this, Riku actually became calm and spoke with total seriousness. PFF, so you mean whether it's a human or someone from another race, as long as you like her, you'll go for it? That's impressively shameless. Kura said, dumbfounded. Maybe. Some things aren't really under my control. Riku shrugged, neither confirming nor denying. Riku, you've changed so much. You feel like a stranger. You were gone just half a month, and my cute little brother turned into a playboy. Kura said, looking conflicted. This world was insane to begin with. I've been repressing myself for too long. Now that I've gained power and the chance to end this mad war of the gods, I can finally return to who I am. If I kept repressing myself, I think I'd go crazy. Riku's golden eyes flashed as he spoke slowly. Yeah. Hearing this, Kura gave a faint, bitter smile and nodded. The old Riku had suppressed himself so much, she always worried he'd break down. Maybe this version was better after all. Yet Kura didn't know that it wasn't about being afraid of breaking, it was that he'd already broken. Anyway, that's enough for now. I'll just wait for you to come marry me, Riku. But you don't need to rush. Go after your plans all you want. I'll always support you. Then Kura stood up, hugged the telescope, and said, for now, I'm going to go modify this thing. With that, she left without waiting for Riku to reply, opened the door, and stepped out, closing it behind her. What an understanding sister. Watching Kura leave, Riku touched his face. She could accept everything he'd just said and didn't even ask about what he was hiding. It really showed how considerate she was. Speaking of which, that ex-machina Lily has finally made it back here, huh? Looks like I lost her a little too thoroughly before. At that moment, Riku's golden eyes narrowed as he muttered to himself. Just now, he'd sensed a faint spirit reaction near the human settlement. Only another race could have that kind of spirit reaction besides himself, and since there was no malice, Riku could easily guess who it was. Truth be told, from the very start, Riku knew a certain ex-machina Lily had been tracking him. It's just that back then, he didn't have the strength to notice. But after using Shambhala to teleport several times in a row, he'd completely lost her. Riku guessed that if the ex-machina Lily couldn't find him anywhere, she'd eventually return to wait at the settlement. Now, it turned out his guess was right. Guess I should go meet her. I just happen to have time now. Riku muttered to himself, thinking it over. Having decided, he activated Shambhala and disappeared from the room. Outside the human settlement, a girl stood quietly atop another hill, silently watching the human settlement. She had waist-length black hair, ruby red eyes, a beautiful and delicate face, and skin as white as snow. She was definitely the kind of stunning beauty who could be called top tier. Although she looked like a beautiful girl, the mechanical headpiece and two cable-like tails behind her clearly revealed her identity as a different race. More precisely, she was Ex Machina. The Ex Machina. Even among all the monsters involved in the Great War, they were an extremely special race. The Ex Machina are a race made of machines, hardly even counted as living things, moving and acting in groups called clusters. In other words, discovering a single individual was the same as discovering the whole race, and entering hostilities with one individual meant war with the entire race. They are truly unique among all races. Not only is their mode of action unique, but their abilities are as well. They can instantly analyze an opponent's attack, replicate it, and store it. Whether it's the breath of a dragonia, the magic of an elf, the technology of a dwarf, or the heavenly smite of a flugel, if an ex machina sees it, they can copy it. You could say they're an extremely troublesome race, with infinite potential to become stronger. Because they act together as one, no other race dares provoke them lightly. Right now, one ex machina individual, a little girl, was staring intently at the human settlement, a place she could wipe out at any time, with an inexplicable look in her eyes. "Little girl, are you looking for me?" A magnetic voice sounded, causing the ex machina Lily to slowly turn around, her red eyes flashing, and then she rushed over. Shui's sudden charge caught Riku completely off guard. Just like that, the ex machina Lily knocked Riku to the ground, straddling his waist. Of course, Riku only allowed this because he knew Shui wouldn't actually hurt him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have let his guard down. Getting knocked down in an instant. It was a strange feeling. Riku's golden eyes locked with the ruby eyes of the ex machina girl sitting on his stomach. For a moment, his thoughts were in disarray. But this girl in front of him was someone who would accompany him for a lifetime. Riku quickly calmed down. "Ana-chan, I can't hold it in anymore. Please make me a woman." Shui stared intently at Riku, and after a few seconds, suddenly spoke. Her voice was crisp and childlike, but her words left Riku completely speechless. "No." Riku looked straight at the mechanical Lily in front of him and replied without hesitation. Query, is it because I lack charm that Ana-chan won't accept my confession? Shui asked again. Why are you so sure I'd want to do that with an ex machina Lily? Besides, you don't even have a hole, do you? Riku held his forehead and couldn't help but retort. Even though he did care deeply for the girl in front of him, there was a line. Affirmative, Ana-san is rejecting me after all. Query, you're obviously friendly toward me, but you still refuse me. Shui lay across Riku, her voice mechanical but somehow not cold. Why are you following me, anyway? Riku decided not to dwell on the last topic and change the subject. Even though he already knew everything about Shui, he had to ask, otherwise, the conversation couldn't move forward. Answer, I want to analyze the independent language humans use to communicate. Explanation, the independent language called heart by humans. Query, you were an ordinary human before, but now you have power equal to a were beast? Inquiry, and not just that, how do you have spatial abilities and manage to lose me? Shui said in her flat tone. I can't tell you that, at least not for now. Riku said calmly. Dissatisfaction? I explained myself, but you won't answer me. That's not fair. Shui sounded almost like she was sulking. How is that unfair? Riku rolled his eyes at the girl clinging to him like a bandit. Can you get off of me now? Denial, no. Request, please engage in heart-to-heart communication with me immediately. Request, physical contact, with skin-to-skin communication. I assume this is a way to connect hearts that ex machina do not possess. Judgment, if I imitate the same action, I may also be able to read the heart. Shui placed her small hand on Riku's face, her tone measured and calm. If you could really understand the heart just through sex, then hearts would be worthless. Riku shook his head with a sigh. Query, according to my research, this method should be correct. Shui insisted, almost sulking. The truth is, even humans can't truly understand their own hearts, much less through something like that. But honestly, if you're seeking the heart, you already have one. Riku said softly. To seek a heart despite being a machine, to want to read and understand a heart, just having that desire meant you already had a soul.